Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. I sound a little different today. I am the father of three small children who are currently just booger factories, so I'm going to try to stay subdued with my yelling for the most part today. And that's going to be hard because I feel like I need to yell about what happened last night at the Delta Center, the second ever Stanley Cup playoff game on home ice for the Utah Mammoth. They go down 3-0. They come charging back, take the 4-3 lead, give up the equalizer, and then in overtime, tragically, painfully, ridiculously, Veggie loses his stick, loses his eyes, gets turned around, and Shea Theodore scores an overtime goal to even the series at 2-2. Just a twist of the knife after the Utah Mammoth had battled their way back, not only into the game, but into the lead in the game. And this is just what we got to get used to. Stanley Cup playoff hockey is absolutely bananas. It is insane. Don't take my word for it. Look at what's happening in the East right now. The Philadelphia Flyers jumped out to a 3-0 lead, 3-0 against the cross-state rival in the Pittsburgh Penguins. And that game is now, or that series, I should say, is now going to a Game 6. So Wednesday night in Sin City, Utah's going to have to spoil the home ice advantage of the Vegas Golden Knights again if they want to win this series. Back in Salt Lake City on Friday. So, I mean, I guess if there's a silver lining to be found in the loss last night, it's that it does guarantee another home playoff game for next Friday. Doesn't make me feel a whole lot better because I will be in Sioux Falls, South Dakota next Friday calling fights. So that sucks. But what a game. I mean, not the result that you wanted, but what an incredible game. What an incredible fight by the Utah Mammoth. And Clayton Keller getting his first goal of the series on what was ultimately just the result. The go-ahead goal for Keller was just a result of something that we've talked about this team needing to do and that Vegas did a much better job of last night, and that's why ultimately they won. When you're in your O-zone, sometimes you have to get some dirt in front of the net. You have to get players in front of the crease. You have to make the defensemen for the Las Vegas Golden Knights battle it out with some bodies. And in the case of that Keller goal, it was Sergachev just creating chaos in front of the net, and the goal wasn't even on target. Keller kind of tried to throw it across the front, and it ended up behind the goalkeeper and bounced off of a defenseman and went into the back of the net. So it doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be something that, it doesn't have to be one of those sniper shots that you get from Dylan Guenther. Schmaltz, Ian Cole, Michael Carcone, Clayton Keller all got on the board. I do have, it's not Friday, but the unbelievable goals scored by Brett Howden of Vegas. In both cases, just wild deflections. Now, the deflected goals, it always looks like it's luck. It's not always luck, right? It's something that especially defensemen practice constantly. Big body forwards practice constantly. Guys who don't have that massive slap shot find ways to figure out how to get themselves in front of a net, redirect a puck that's coming in either as a shot or kind of like a heated pass. And in the case of Howden, if you go back and you watch the highlights of this game, you watch both of those goals. I'm trying to come up with the equivalent in any other sport. I don't know why I feel a need to do that with hockey, but I think it's just because it's still so new to all of us. it was like, at the very best, both of those goals were bank shot three-pointers in the NBA. It still counts. It still requires a heck of a lot of skill, maybe even more skill. You look at it, and the guys who make those shots in the NBA, they always kind of trot back with sort of a half smile on their face. They're like, that's not exactly what I meant to have happen. Brett Howden was holding his stick in both of these cases. He's deflecting from like above the waist, lacrosse sticking this thing down, bouncing it onto the ice and past Veggie. We gotta get a real bona fide NHL hockey player on the air to tell me how high percentage that kind of deflection usually is. Just crazy that one goes in and then to get a second one. And the first one's a shorthanded goal. The first shorthanded goal scored in this series by either team, if I'm not mistaken. And Mitch Marner gets the credit for the assist. Mitch Marner was not trying to assist. He was chucking that puck in at like chest level. And Howden somehow bats it out of the air with his stick. And then the same thing happened. Although I think that the Hannafin Jack Eichel assisted third period goal to tie it up at 4. I think that one was a little bit less ridiculous, if I'm remembering correctly, if I'm watching this highlight correctly. But in both cases, it was like, come on, man. How? You need a little bit of luck in all sports. In every playoff situation, you need a little bit of luck to get you all the way through. Vegas on both of those Howden goals, and not to take anything away from him. He's obviously a really good player, but they got blessings from the hockey gods that he was able to bounce both of those bad boys in. Those redirects it's the bank shot three-pointer. It's the touchdown pass that bounces off of 3 bodies and gets juggled before it gets caught. It's the kick that hits the crossbar and goes over for the game winner. What would it be in baseball? In baseball, it's I saw this happen at a T-ball game. I don't think it happens in Major League Baseball. My daughter last Monday night, not yesterday because it got rained out, but last Monday night, one of the little girls on her team swings the bat, and like a cartoon, the momentum of the bat carries her all the way around in a pirouette, spins her all the way around. And on the second time around, that's when the bat hits the ball. So full spin, bat hits the ball on top of the tee, and as it always is in T-ball, it was a base hit.
I wonder if it's like the triple that the outfield throws into the stand, so it becomes a triple and a run scored on an error, but in effect a home run. I wonder if it's like that, very fluky, like a great play still, but not necessarily one that should have scored.
Like, we've all done this in whatever sport you play, right? Where something happens that's absolutely insane. The reverse layup that you're just throwing it up to try to get the and one, and it actually goes in. And you're like, yeah, I totally meant to do that. Vegas got 2 of those goals. Not 1, 2, including the game-tying goal that sent it into overtime, and ultimately they won in overtime. And it actually looked like maybe they had won it in overtime before the actual game winner happened, before Veggie. I think it was Ian Cole accidentally got pushed, skated into Veggie, knocked the stick out of his hand, and then he was just like discombobulated.
Yeah.
And Shea Theodore was able to put that one in the back of the net. But
the first time, OC, the collective like groan and then silence that I'm sure you heard over the TV broadcast. But then like kind of a mass exodus from the seats. I don't know if anyone actually made it out of the building. I don't know if I saw anyone leave the building and then be screwed and miss the last like 12, 13 minutes of overtime, which they end up losing anyway. So maybe they would have preferred to leave the building. But there at one, you were there for Friday's game. At one end of the building, there's a giant screen right? And so that's where we are. We're trying to get down. Us media folks are trying to get over to where we can get to post game in time, right? And we're leaving with some of the fans, and some of the fans that are in our area there were like, "Oh, it's offside,
And
it's offside," and then they everyone starts running back to their seats. So that was kind of a crazy moment in the building for everybody.
And Eichel was offsides. What really was, excuse me, what really was painful about the way that overtime ended up working out is down the stretch in the third period, Utah once again killed some pretty significant penalties. In overtime, you kill a penalty, and in the offensive zone, you're possessing the puck for in late in the third and in overtime, you're possessing the puck for like 70% of the total time skated. And just not, unfortunately, able to generate the offense, not able to generate what you needed. Give Hart, their goaltender, credit because he was abysmally bad in Game 3, and he came up with some very, very timely saves late in the third and in overtime in this one on some really, really good chances. Gunther had a nice look. Schmaltz had a really nice look. Krause, he almost broke a stick because he had a breakaway opportunity that just got mishandled. And now you're tied up 2-2. More playoff hockey coming back to the Delta Center next Friday night. If there is, again, you try to look for silver linings. If there's something that makes you feel better, or makes me feel better about losing this one in overtime, the fact that you've now kind of done it all in the playoffs. Now, you got a lot of guys on your team with playoff experience, right? But you don't have, as a unit, you don't have playoff experience together. Now you're 4 games into the playoffs. You've already won on the road. You've already skated an extra 20 minutes in overtime. You've already gone through that situation. And the national broadcast on ESPN last night, TJ Oshie is – I like him as a broadcaster right now because he is so not polished. He's new to it. And he's kind of like, from a formatic standpoint, he's kind of bad. You know what I mean? He's not smooth yet. And I think with that comes a little bit more candor, a little bit more honesty. He doesn't know, like, the stuff you're not supposed to say about how a team's skating, how a team's playing. He's not, like, fully dialed in all the way, and hasn't probably had some of the conversations with, like, a producer just like, hey, man, you can't say that kind of stuff, or teams aren't going to want to talk to you, or, hey, you can't, like – but I thought he was really good last night, and part of what he was good about was describing just how miserable those overtime shifts can become. And, again, on the national broadcast, as soon as they get past, like, a minute on the ice for each, they start showing the shift time where – the Mammoth in a couple of situations, and the Knights in a couple of situations also, were basically stuck on a shift much, much longer than they wanted to be, going almost 2 minutes on a shift.
There was about a 4-minute stretch with no stoppages in overtime, from about 7 minutes left to about 3 minutes left, and that was maybe the longest of the game. I may have missed a longer one, but it felt like it was the longest of the game, and it was the kind of shift that I think Vegas had it on in their zone, controlling it almost that whole time, and so there really wasn't an opportunity to change any lines for either team. So it was almost a 4-minute shift for both teams, which, if we're all new to hockey, we're all learning that ideally you're going 90 seconds tops, maybe 2 minutes tops. They're going about double that. They went about double that in that stretch in overtime. I mean, that must have been brutal.
Jack Eichel skated 29 minutes in this game. Noah Hannafin skated 29 minutes in this game. Shea Theodore skated 33 minutes in the game, and the ultimate reward for him is the game-winning goal. Sergachev was over 30 minutes in a Mammoth uniform. Schmaltz, 27 minutes. Krause, almost 29 minutes, just under 29 minutes. I mean, this is a lot of work for these guys, and you've got to take a nice recovery day today, but you're traveling as well down to Vegas, and you gotta be ready to go at T-Mobile Arena tomorrow night. It's brutal after an overtime game, but you've now checked a bunch of boxes as a squad together. You've navigated through. You've got the road win already. You've got the home loss. You've got the overtime, and quite frankly, a comedy of errors unfolded in that overtime. That, like, how many times this year? I haven't watched every single Mammoth game this year, but I watched a heck of a lot of them. How many times this year did we find Veggie without a stick in his hand with the opposition in the offensive zone? How many times?
I mean, I think never, right?
I think that was one. I think that was the first time, and it came at the worst possible time. 877-353-0700 if you want to share your takeaways from watching the game, either in person at the Delta Center or at home. I planned on going. I didn't end up going. Dad duty called. Got to watch the game on the TV at home. Got to flip back and forth between the local broadcast and the national broadcast. And James, you were there. Both broadcasts kept talking about how loud it was. And you hear it from Olczyk. You heard it from TJ Oshie. They were like, it's shaking down here on the ice. Was the atmosphere on Monday night the same as it was on Friday night?
I think it was, which is wild for a couple of reasons. One, Friday night was the historic moment. The first one you expect to be the biggest one, right? But another reason is this was a Monday night. This, like, the first game 3 was on a Friday night, opening the weekend. Kids don't have school the next day. Most parents in the building and adults in the building didn't have to work the next day, right? Or if they did, they could at least sleep in. So you expect a wild, raucous, and huge crowd on a weekend, effectively on a Friday night. I was wondering, this not only not being the big historic first game, but also it not being a weekend, just how different it might be, how much quieter it might be. It was not. It was about the same. There were some moments, I think, in the second and third period, because of that barrage of goal scoring, it might have been louder than it was on Friday night. OC. It was the Utah fans brought it once again, and you should be proud of yourselves, those that are in there, those that were supporting from home that would have been crazy loud. The passion is showing through, and all of the national and the Vegas beat writers, they're all talking about it, about how this is an incredible hockey fan base only 2 years in.
Mike Folta, by the way, the radio voice of the Utah Mammoth, is going to join us at noon today. Gordy Chiesa is joining us in about 10 minutes. Jeff Schwartz to talk draft recap. We'll get into some fits with Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu, the offensive line systems that they're going to be drafted into, or that they have been drafted into. We'll talk about that with Jeff. So if you're big on offensive line play, you're going to like that conversation.
Well, Utah fans are at this point because of those two guys.
Well, by the way, we didn't talk about this yesterday, but James and I ran into at Friday night's game. We ran into Jim Harding.
We did. He brought his son to the game, which is way cool for them.
His son plays hockey, and Coach Harding was like sort of like sheepish when we talked to him. He's just like, I know I'm not the most popular guy around here now. I don't pretend to speak for all Utah fans, but I was like, man, you don't have to. Like, he's going home. His wife's from Michigan. They're from the Midwest. Like, it's fine.
That's what he said to us too.
Yeah.
Like, I hope people understand. Like, this is home for me. A chance for me to go home, not just a chance to go to a bigger job.
Congratulated him on having Caleb Lomu and Spencer Fano both drafted in the first round. I mean, he was massively important to the development of both of those guys. He was massively important to the retention of both of those guys on the Utah roster when they were both given big-time opportunities to go basically anywhere they wanted to in the country. And I do not bear a grudge over anyone that left. I know it's obnoxious and it's annoying to bring it up again, but I think it's important. I'll use this as a segue. Some news broke after our show yesterday that was, for me, like pretty darn significant, like pretty seismic because of the timing of it. So you've heard me mention many, many times on this program, on any program I've been on, the strength and conditioning program's importance in all of college football, right? And it's now acknowledged pretty much across the board how massively important those types of coaches and their knowledge and their skill set and their programs are by anyone in the football world. Well, Doug Elisaya had been with Kyle Whittingham, had been with Utah football since the 2005-2006 season. He took over in 2006 as the head guy, and he had been there the whole time. Now, interestingly enough, his lead assistant is a guy named Greg Argist, and Coach Argist actually predated Doug Elisaya. Elisaya came in with another guy, Coach Johnson, and Coach Johnson was only here for a year. Pardon me. But Greg Argist, he and I have joked about it many times. Like, I didn't even realize how young he was when I was on the team up there when we were doing that whole, like, Fiesta Bowl season. He was like 2 years older than us. He was a graduate assistant that then became an assistant that then became the lead assistant. But Greg Argist had actually been at the University of Utah in that strength and conditioning program since before Doug Elisaya got the head job. And he stepped down. He resigned, was the report. That Coach Argist is out. Now, I have talked to several different people about this because it is a big deal. Like, the work that's being done between now and the start of the season, 80% of that work is your strength and conditioning coach, is your strength and conditioning program. Morgan Scally and his assistants, until camp starts, have very, very, very little influence over what happens with this team. Spring ball is done, which means the work being put in between now and fall camp is done in the weight room primarily. Rules have changed, so you can do some like shells, 7-on-7 type, like the voluntary/involuntary workouts. Coaches only have a certain amount of influence, right? But Greg Argist was a continuation of the Whittingham way, which a lot of people loved, and the results speak for themselves. Like, they had a bunch of, it was still a developmental program. You still turned a bunch of 3-star guys into NFL players. You had big, strong, fast guys. Plenty of us questioned over the injury-laden years whether or not the strength and conditioning program had contributed to any of that. But there's no real answer to it, right? And then you got the data last year that they were finally, with a massive amount of relief, saying, hey, our soft tissue injuries are way down. Everything, like, we've made the adjustments we think we were supposed to make, et cetera, et cetera. Well, there is no more Greg Argist. He's out. And the hope is, the conversations that I've heard and have had, that he will land on his feet somewhere. But there's a lot of controversy. There's a significant amount of controversy in the alumni base, especially the guys that are kind of from that last 20 years, about whether or not Morgan Scally is pulling the right move. Here's what I want to say about it. Morgan Scally is putting his stamp on this program. It is his program now. And there are a lot of people in this fan base that are like, well, we're okay with the change, but we want to be comfortable with that change. And I think that's an unrealistic expectation. I think that there are a lot of people like, yeah, it was time for Witt to go, but as long as I approve of everything that happens moving forward, do you trust Morgan Scally or not? Ask yourself that question today. Ask yourself that question every time you see a headline about somebody like Greg Argist, who has been in this program for 24 years, When that person is gone, do you trust Morgan Scalley in his decision-making or not? Do you trust that he is elevating a guy who was blackballed from the NFL as a strength and conditioning coach? Do you say, well, if it's good enough for Morgan, it's good enough for me? Do you have that level of trust in your head coach? Because I think for the most part we had that with Kyle Whittingham. Sometimes we lost it with Kyle Whittingham on the damn analytics stuff. I was just like, I don't want to hear that. I trust you implicitly. I don't trust the analytics, right? Do you trust Morgan Scalley when he says, this is the stamp I want to put on my program? Because it is his program. And I could not respect, love, enjoy conversation. Greg Argist is one of the guys that made my experience as a lowly nobody walk-on at the University of Utah. He's one of the guys who made my experience fulfilling, worthwhile, fun, incredible. I love that guy. Love him. He was a big part of very formative years for me as a young person and athlete. I only want good things for him and his family. His wife is also an employee at the university. They've got kids. I want wonderful things to happen for that family. I hate seeing somebody not have the job that is, I haven't talked to him yet, but I talked to him literally last week, and like that is his dream job. He no longer has that job. Voluntarily, or depending on who you listen to, kind of like a, hey, thanks for your service, but we're going to reorganize some things. Do you still want to stay? That's sort of a, we're not going to fire you, but you might be firing yourself here type situation is what I was told by at least a couple people. But do I trust Morgan Scalley? Do I think Morgan Scalley should be able to put his stamp on this program and do things his way, whether you like them or not? Do you want Morgan Scalley to live and die by his own sword? Or do you want him to be like, well, I'm kind of trying to maintain some continuity because people are really uncomfortable with the fact that this Kyle Whittingham to Michigan thing happened? Absolutely not. I don't want him to be apologetic about any of this. And the decision that he made was to hire a former Baltimore Ravens strength and conditioning coach that got an F- grade in the NFLPA. But again, read more into what that stuff is about. Read more into the players that are talking about it and make your decisions on that. Like a lot of the guys that did not like this new Utah strength and conditioning coach when he was with the Ravens are like barely make the roster kind of guys. I'm going to blame my lack of success in the NFL on something type of guys. And it's going to be on the strength and conditioning coach because I wasn't able to stay healthy kind of situation. But Derek Wolfe didn't like him. Matthew Judon didn't like him. Those are two really, really good players. You know who did like him? You know who loved him? You know who, when I asked, like, hey, what's this about? Said, could not have made a better decision. Eric Weddle. So do you, if your question is, do I trust Morgan Scalley? And you're like, I think so, but I'm not sure. You also get to ask that question about Eric Weddle. Do you trust one of the all-time greats from this program who's never have anything but the best interest of the program in his mind and is an example of the ultimate level of success that this program could generate at the college and the NFL level? Do you trust Eric Weddle's opinion on this? Steve Saunders, former strength and conditioning coach for the Baltimore Ravens from 2016 to 2023, is now the director of football sports performance at the University of Utah. Same day, and shout out to our guy, Mr. Batakiao.
Yeah, you breaking the news for the Salt Lake Tribune.
He broke the news for the Trib. He was on it before anyone else was on it. And he got a no comment from Greg Argist, which, knowing what I know about Argist, I'm gonna get a comment. We're gonna get a comment. I don't know if it'll be on the record, but I can't wait to talk to him. But him just throwing a no comment out there is telling for me that this was not the easiest, smoothest transition of power to Steve Saunders.
Maybe not fully voluntary.Maybe not.
I don't want to say anything before I talk to the necessary people, but Steve Saunders, former NFL guy, is now your director of strength and conditioning, sports performance. He's your strength coach. 877-353-0700. Tell me how you feel about it. Is the endorsement of Eric Weddle enough for you to say, I'm not going to question it? Is the fact that even if Weddle was not involved, if Morgan Scalley just says, no, this is my guy, this is who I want. Remember, Morgan Scalley is also the one who gave Greg Argus the head coaching job when LSI and his staff left. So this is a change. You hired a guy, and then a few months later, a different decision, whether it was his decision, your mutual decision, something else happened here. There's some indecision that happened in this process. And Steve Saunders is the new guy. How much do you trust it as a Utah football fan? And by the way, it's so hard to gauge into strength and conditioning more than anything else is one of those things where you're just like, well, I can't exactly read it on the first few practices that I'm out there. Steve Saunders' work, the nature of it is not that hey, all of a sudden everyone runs 4.40s.
No one gets hurt this year. That's not necessarily the case.
If somebody breaks their leg, are you going to blame Steve Saunders? You might, and you'd be incorrect in doing so. If 12 different guys have tendinitis issues and miss time because of it, then you are going to question, and probably rightfully so. But it's going to take time for this, and Argus did not give himself was not given that time to see if he could do better than Doug Alisai had done, as well as Doug Alisai had done, whatever. This is a big deal that is not going to get a ton of headlines outside of the state of Utah and not going to get talked about a ton probably outside of the Utah station. But Steve Saunders, under any other circumstance, if you can bring in a guy who is the head strength coach for a very successful NFL franchise to be part of your college deal, that's a win, right? This timing, this circumstance, the group chats that are blowing up with alumni makes it a little bit different for me. 877-353-0700. Tell me what you think, your reaction to the news that Utah's got a new strength coach. Got to take a break. We're going to come back with Gordy Chiesa. We're going to dive back into this Utah strength, Utah football conversation. More Mammoth conversation coming up. We're just getting rolling on a Tuesday. ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome in, Gordy Chiesa, our resident NBA guru, brought to you by Aladdin Industries, your Utah V-Lux dealer. Gordy, how are you, sir?
Sean, I'm doing well. I'm recovering from last night's hockey game where I watched the last half and the overtime, and my body still hurts watching it.
Yeah, I think painful for a lot of reasons for all of us. And interestingly, Gordy, I feel as though I have neglected the NBA playoffs because of what's happening with NHL hockey here in our home market. Uh, you know, I'm watching the rest of the Western Conference. I'm watching the Utah Mammoth. I'm taking my notes, and then I'm like, oh, wait a second. What's this say on SportsCenter? It says that the Orlando Magic might knock off the number 1 seed in the East. What's going on with the Magic and the Pistons, Gordy?
Time of year as far as basketball and hockey. And that's the one catchword is always in playoffs is intensity and execution. And whether it's hockey, whether it's basketball or the NFL, it does matter.
So give me a sense of what's going on in this Magic versus Pistons series.
Well, the first thing is that the defense is so fierce on both teams that nobody can score. So last night, the winning team, the Magic, won at home 94-88, Sean, where the Magic shot from the field a very icy 33%. And they won the game. And the two star players, Paolo Banchero and Jalen Suggs, combined shooting 5 for 31, and their team still won. And the reason why they won is because the Pistons, they had no answers as far as scoring the ball themselves. They shot an icy 38%, but the worst part about it, they committed 20 turnovers. And that's something you can't do that. You cannot have high turnover ratio and win a playoff game because every possession does matter. And that's what they're doing it. So the Magic point of view in the big picture is that they're going to try to attempt to knock off the first seed. They're the 8th seed, the Magic, and it'll be the Magic's first, if they do this, it'll be their first playoff series win in 16 years since 2010. So they're doing it on defense. And Detroit, even though they won 60 games this past season, which is absolutely commendable, they're being exposed, their lack of what? Just overall scoring the ball minus Cade Cunningham. And so they got to address that, quote, if they get past this round, which would be by then would be a miracle, but if next off season, they've got to address that as far as their offensive ineptness.
I know you already talked about the low shooting percentage for both teams here, but for Cunningham, who is the number 1 scoring option for Detroit, he was 7 of 23 from the field, 3 of 11 from the 3-point line. Going the regular field goals, is it a shot selection problem for him? A cold night where you just there's a lid on the rim and there's nothing really to explain it. When you see that kind of performance out of a guy who your team needs to score, is there a way to improve it with coaching, with practice, with execution?
Well, 1, execution, but 2, more shots on bounce. So the physicality. So when you're a star player in the NBA, as far as a scorer, the defense is so trying to take away your easier looks. So I call this all the time. With most star players, it's a blend of ballet and wrestling during the game. And that the people that can overcome that, they master both arts form, where they can score the ball airborne, but yet they can still brawl with people in the lane. And so you have to understand that they're trying to stop you. It's a ballet and wrestling on the same possession. And so you've got to be able to score through physicality. And it's a learning experience, Sean, and it's painful. And that's what the playoffs, there's nothing regular about the NBA playoffs. During a regular season, it's a love fest, I call it. Everybody's shooting threes. It's most teams and star players, they're free flowing. You get to the playoffs, it's absolutely a half court game, and it's grind out, and you have to be strong mentally and physically.
With that in mind, Gordy, how many teams have the experience in the play? Because if you're playing the regular season a certain way, and then the game shifts so dramatically when you get to playoff basketball, how many teams are equipped for that? Like you said, either mentally or physically.
All right, in the East, it would be the Celts, absolutely, and a half of the Knicks, a half of them. Emphasize a half. In the West, it's the Thunder the T-Wolves, the Lakers, half of the Nuggets, and a half of the Spurs. And I say the Spurs only half because their talent level is really high. They haven't done it yet. And so that makes them only give them a half. The T-Wolves, believe it or not, the way they play, they're physical. And even though they showed their heart and courage, I know they lost last night because the Nuggets showed what they're all about. But before that happening is that the T-Wolves, let's not forget, they advanced to the conference finals back-to-back seasons. So they know what it takes to advance to each round. And they've showed their level of physicality. And now the question is, can he do it on Thursday night again at home now when they're going to try to attempt to knock out the Denver Nuggets, who in their world they're going to say we're not going to cooperate. Because last night's game, Sean, the Nuggets and the T-Wolves was really an amazing game because of the T-Wolves lose the game. They commit 25 turnovers. So getting back to about the Pistons, they had 25 turnovers. You can't win on the road. And with that said, though, there's always an X factor by players. And last night for the Denver Nuggets, it was Spencer Jones, Sean, undrafted guy in 2024 out of Stanford. He gets 20 points in 37 minutes, but it's how he got them out of the offense. It's 4 for 5 in threes, 3 steals, and 3 blocks. And even worse than that, Sean, to add to this, he was on a 2-way contract until this year, until February 19th. So he got promoted from 2-way to a regular standard contract where he makes the rest of the season this year. He makes $623,000 and 623,967 this season. Let's put in context. Former Jazz man who lost in the first round, the Phoenix Suns, Grayson Allen, makes this year $16.8 million. So I'm putting in context purposely so that your listeners can understand this. So Spencer Jones earned this contract, Sean, all in one game by helping the Nuggets to hang in there to try to get to a game in their world, Game 6 and Game 7.
We saw Victor Wembanyama back in action. He looked awesome, 7 blocks. He was also critical of the concussion protocols in the NBA. And it's fascinating when I hear somebody like him kind of pushing back a little bit on league policy, having something to say, because he's emerging as the face of the league. He's one of the few guys that I think the NBA wants to make sure they stay in good graces with and they want to have a great relationship with. You know a lot more about concussion protocols and the way that things can or cannot be manipulated. But when you've got a megastar player like that saying, I could have played in the last game, I don't like the way that this stuff is being handled, does it trigger some type of evaluation in the league office, or how does it work?
No, not at all. The league office is steadfast about that. This is people's careers, and so the doctors know, and so do the athletic trainers. So there's a protocol you have to pass each day as far as movement, running, cognitive tests. It's all predetermined, and that the doctors are there and they're administering the test, and then they report it back to the NBA. I'm glad they have the concussion. Sean, in the NFL, are you kidding me? In the NFL, wherever you play, there's a collision. And we also went beyond, but when he fell, he hit face first on that ground. And that, so he's a young fella. I get he wants to play, which is commendable. I want to help my team. I'm okay. Yeah, he's okay as far as walking around, maybe on an off day at the mall, but not playing an NBA game. Now he's going to play. He's going to play next game, and he's fine, and that's good. So it's for a reason they do that for, because we know about brain injuries. They want to be very, very conscious of it, and the NBA, like all other professional teams, they are. I'm all for it.
Spurs Blazers tips off tonight. San Antonio could close it out. Do you think they will?
Yes. They have a tremendous team, good coaching, tremendous camaraderie. They play as a unit. I think they're going to close it out. But also the Trailblazers, up-and-coming team. Denny Avdia is absolutely potential. I call him a right-handed Manu Ginobili, the way he plays. especially in playoff games. He drives that ball to the basket. He hustles. He makes shots. He blocks. He gets steals. He's a havoc player, just like Ginobili was, and he's right-handed. So in Jazz basketball, as they go forward, they've got to beat the Trailblazers. See, last year in Jazz basketball, in their division, they finished 1-15. So again, it's who you play against. So in the Jazz division, for the listeners, to remind them, the Denver Nuggets, Minnesota Timberwolves, Portland Trailblazers, and the OKC Thunder. And so the Jazz are in a tough division. I mean, both physically and with a lot of good players in their prime, or younger guys that are entering their prime. So the Jazz are going to play catch-up. They think they can, and now the question is when it's going to happen.
Gordy Chiesa is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking all things NBA for a couple more minutes here. We were having this conversation about the Stanley Cup playoffs because, Utah had a chance to go up 3-1 last night. Instead, it's 2-2, extends the series. They'll be playing at least until Friday, maybe even beyond. And, in the NBA, you've got a team that's already closed out a series. You've got another one in the first round that's going to go 7 games. Where do you stand on the advantages or disadvantages of finishing series early and then having to wait?
Rest is important, so I'm all for it. Knock them out. So don't play around and say that let's not win on the road. Let's only win at home as far as a knockout game. No, get it done. And it's so much, it's a mental preparation for it. So if you can knock somebody out, it's advantageous to rest your bodies. Remember, people say, well, what about the rust factor, meaning you haven't played, like, we'll say, next round in, say, 5 or 6, 7 days. There's so many games before that. The players know how to get themselves ready to play. Rest is absolutely paramount. And remember now, you started practice in the dog days of September 30th or so, in the beginning, Sean, of the NFL season. Put it in context. Now it's already, NFL's over. Hockey is in the playoffs right now, and baseball's already starting as far as the first month of the season. So it's better to win and rest.
All right, Gordy, what's your most what game draws the most interest tonight for you? I already asked you about the Spurs, and maybe it's that one, but which one are you going to be most dialed in on?
Next, Atlanta at New York in the Madison Square Garden. It's 2-2. Sean, they don't like each other, which is good. Perfect. Last game in game 4, pardon me, is the Knicks ran their offense through Karl Anthony Towns versus running it through Jalen Brunson. And so what happened during that game is that everybody got more involved, including Brunson. And so they hit Anthony Towns at the elbow or the high post or just swinging the ball to him, and he had a triple-double. But more importantly, there was more cutting. There was less dribbling. So I'm fascinated to see if the Knicks use that formula again, where less pick and roll with Brunson, who's tremendous, though, and more just Anthony Towns and his trusted teammates as far as a ball fluidity, where the ball's hopping. The defense is fierce, so you have to cut. You just can't be stationary. It's much easier to guard somebody if they're flat-footed versus somebody set up, cutting, back cutting, elbow reactions, playing the game as far as a unit. And so I'm looking forward to see that. From Atlanta's point of view, they're good. They play hard, Atlanta. They have tremendous defensive players. Can they take away Anthony Towns some of his easy catches and to elongate the moves? And also, can the Hawks right now rediscover their offense? And it's going to be an interesting game in the Garden. Game 5, there's nothing like it. In Madison Square Garden, the intensity is incredible. Again, both teams don't like each other. That's what makes it so special.
What's your list today, Gordy?
Our list today, Sean, is a very short list because it hardly ever happens. And I have one question for you about the NFL at the end of the list. Here we go. The ultimate trifecta of a single season in NBA basketball is the ultimate trifecta. That is winning the league MVP, winning the NBA Finals MVP, and the NBA championship in the same season. So you win the league MVP, the Finals MVP, and your team wins the NBA championship. It only happens very few times. Here we are. Last season, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, he won all three in 2025. In 1970, Willis Reed did it. In 1994, Hakeem Olajuwon did it. In 2003, Tim Duncan did it. In 2000, Shaquille O'Neal did it. In 1987, Magic Johnson did it. All these guys did it one time. LeBron James did it twice, in 2012 and 2013. Larry Bird also did it twice, in 1984 and 1986. And the only player ever to do it more than twice is Michael Jordan. He did it 4 times, in 1991, 1992, 1996, and in 1998. So it's an elite list of very few people that are ever to do it. And before I add to this list, as far as that, Bill Russell and Will Chamberlain might have done it many a time, but the MVP of the NBA Finals wasn't established until 1969. So we never know how many times Bill Russell, Will Chamberlain would have won the trifecta of the league MVP, the NBA Finals, and the league championship. Now, Victor Wembanyama, question mark, and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, it's going to happen with those guys. Probably will win multiple league MVPs, finals MVPs, and perhaps league championships. So that's the list. It's so few people ever to do that, the NBA trifecta. All right, Sean, how many times did Tom Brady do the exact same thing of winning the league MVP and the Super Bowl MVP?
And a Super Bowl?
MVP, yes.
So he won. How many times did Tom Brady win NFL MVP, Super Bowl MVP, and win the Super Bowl in the same year?
In the same season, correct.
0.
That is correct. That's exactly right. He never did it in the same season. He won 5 Super Bowls MVP, and he won 3 league MVPs, but never in the same season. That's how hard it is. So Brady, the greatest football player of all time, had never did that ever.
Well, there was
in basketball, it just shows you how hard it is to do.
There was like a 20-year stretch, 20-plus year stretch in the NFL where winning NFL MVP was a curse that meant you weren't going to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, very much. And by the way, because the other guys are good who you play against in the postseason, that's what makes it so special. So Jordan did it 4 times, Bird twice, LeBron twice, Victor Wembanyama 0, question marks, let's future out, and Shea from the OKC Thunder did it last year 1 time, let's future out. And Jazz basketball, they're going to try to play catch-up and be in a list someday.
Gordy, I'm going to ask you this. We're going to get to it a little bit later in the show, but I want to ask you it now so I can add your opinion to the context here. So it's a college football question. Brendan Sorsby, I'm sure you saw this, Cincinnati quarterback transferring to Texas Tech, is under investigation. He's checking into rehab. He's admitted to having a severe gambling addiction, and he's been betting on college sports, including his own teams in college sports. How should this be handled for a 22-year-old kid who's been doing this since he was, at least 20, probably before that, but thousands and thousands of bets on college and pro sports for someone that age, and he's got another year of eligibility to play at Texas Tech, unless, of course, they choose to not let him. How should it be handled?
1, get counseling, and 2, he should forfeit his last year of eligibility. You can't have that. Because the integrity of the sport. I'm not being naive. You can bet, but you can't bet on your own team, etc. You can't do that, whether it's pro or college.
All right. Remember, everyone, that Gordy said that when we get to the conversation later on in the show about Brendan Sorsby and the latest revelation in that NCAA investigation. Gordy, I always appreciate your time, sir. Thank you very much.
And then, Sean, you're my ultimate trifecta. You are.
That's right. I have won almost nothing, next to nothing, and practically nothing, all in the same year many times.
Interesting. Peace out, Sean.
That's Gordy Chiesa. James, how many NFL players have pulled off that trifecta?
I was just trying to figure that out in my head.
You're the you're our
But
own
I
version
don't-
of the Swami. So
yeah,
like,
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I've just started to go through the past couple years. It hasn't happened at least in the past 4 or 5 years. But
Patrick Mahomes did it in 2022. Super Bowl was 2023.
that's right. He was an MVP that year, huh?
He's the one.
I forgot.
He's the one who broke the streak. There was like 23 years or something where if you won the NFL MVP,
Was it Kurt Warner before him?
Yes, it was.
Wow. So you just got to give me a little nugget of information, then the brain starts working.
All right. 7 guys have done it.
Oh man, I don't know if I can do all 7.
I couldn't do all 7 either. I know that Joe Montana and Steve Young both did it.
Who's the oldest one to do it? Like, what's the farthest back we got to go?
I think it's Bart Starr.
Okay, so like the very beginning of the NFL. Gotcha.
Hold on, let me see here. I'm
Of the
just gonna,
Super Bowl era, anyway.
NFL Super Bowl MVP, and NFL MVP. 2022, Patrick Mahomes. 1999, Kurt Warner. 1996, Brett Favre. 1994, Steve Young. 1993, Emmitt Smith. Joe Montana in 89, Terry Bradshaw in 78, and Bart Starr in 1966.
Well, Tom Brady's overrated. That's what we decided here, and that Bill Belichick was the reason for the dynasty in New England. Not
All right, wow.
not Brady. I guess that's what we decided here.
Strong conclusion.
I don't
you're
want
coming
to, and
there.
I don't want to hear you say anything about how Peyton Manning didn't win either. But
It's fine.
We can just move on from that.
Red West is coming back October 16th and 17th at the Utah State Fair Park. Artists will be there, Ella Langley, Shabuzi, Sam Tucker, many more. Tune in during Topical Trivia around 1:45 for your chance to win 2 two-day passes to Red West. Details are available at ESPN700sports.com. We will give away Red West passes at the end of the show today, a show that is brought to you today and every day by our friends down at Big Willie's. I didn't get to go to the game last night. I should have taken my 3 young children to Big Willie's and just figured out to get them fake IDs or something so they could get in, so we could have had some tater tots together.
And not to give them anything they shouldn't have. Absolutely not. Just a
Well,
great place to be.
I don't even drink the stuff that they're not supposed to have. 1717 South Main. Tell them OC sent you down at Big Willie's. Mammoth watch parties for all of the games, including Wednesday night, including Friday night coming up.
Sunday would be Game 7, by the way.
You got at
Be
least
one then too.
You got at least 2 more. Sunday would be one as well, and they're giving away signed Mammoth gear at these watch parties. So you want to get down to Big Willie's if you don't have a ticket to the game itself. 1717 South Main. Incredible food, incredible drinks, cold beers on draft. The number 1 pool hall in Utah, the number 1 sports bar in Utah. Big Willie's. All right.
By the way, you know who also wasn't at Big Willie's? Who I saw at the game. We had a nice greeting to each other, nice hello to each other. Michelle from Big Willie's.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, she was at the game.
that's awesome.
I didn't see Pat. I don't know if it was like a girls' night kind of a game, or if I just didn't see Pat with her. She was in the concourse.
Well, to be fair, if if they're together, your eyes are drawn to Michelle more than they're drawn to Pat.
That's a good point.
You know, that's by design. Pat's done well for himself in that regard. We're going to double up here. Mike Folta, the radio voice of the Utah Mammoth, is going to join us on the other side. Talk about last night's overtime loss and, of course, how do you bounce back on the road in Vegas? Sean O'Connell Show, Hour 2 next on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome to hour number 2 here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Welcome in Mike Folta, radio voice of the Utah Mammoth. And a man who, I mean, he probably sounds better than I do. I don't know. I don't have an excuse, but that was a loud one last night. Even with the mic right in front of his face, I imagine he had to get loud in order to be heard over that Delta Center crowd. Mike Folta, welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. How are you?
OC, great to talk to you. Milk, peanut butter, and English muffins. That's how you wind down and go to bed after a crazy night, and that's what I was pounding last night at about 2 a.m. trying to fall asleep after what was one of the craziest games we've seen at the Delta Center, at least on the ice for the Utah Mammoths. 5-4 overtime loss, but a thriller, and afterwards a little glass of milk, some English muffin with some melted peanut butter on top, and that'll put you right out. No counting sheep for me.
I think we just became best friends. That sounds exactly like my kind of a post-work snack. That's lovely. Well done to you, sir. So, let's talk about the game, and then I want to get into some of the more big-picture stuff with this Utah Mammoth team. They go down 3-0, and the context of heading into this game, knowing you could go up and take control of the series at 3-1, there's a certain amount of pressure that comes with that, but then you go down 3-0, and you could lay down. You could be like, oh, man, all right, we'll get them next time. What did you see from this team after they dug themselves a hole that still makes you believe they can win the series?
Well, that's just the thing, Sean, is that I was starting to pull out the joke book in period 2. I was like, we're going to have to start entertaining the fans in different ways than just calling the game because the game ain't going so well. Mammoth went down 3-0, as you said, and Logan Cooley takes a bad penalty, and I'm thinking, okay, here it comes. This is when the wagon wheels fall off. We'll get them in Game 5. But no, the Mammoth turned on the Jets and brought it to within 1 at the end of the second period. And then, I mean, I got to be honest with you. I don't know if I've ever felt anything like I felt before when Michael Carcone tied the game at 3, and then when Clayton Keller gave Utah the lead in the third period. And look, there's no such things as moral victories. It's the Stanley Cup playoffs is all or nothing, right? You don't get any standings points for going to overtime. You either win or you don't. And we all walked away from the Delta Center disappointed with the results last night. But I think the Mammoths learned something about themselves in these high-pressure moments that even staring at what seems like an impossible mountain, they can climb their way back. Now, they don't want to fall behind 3-0 again in any of the next games, especially tomorrow night in Game 5 on the road in a pivotal game. But this is, I think, last night was a performance that can instill some more belief and confidence in this group, knowing they can come back in games and knowing that they're good enough to erase these big deficits against a Golden Knights team that's feeling it right now.
I asked this question earlier on the show, and it was rhetorical. I have no real answer to it. You probably have a better shot of answering it for real because you've been so close to this team and on all these games. But how many times has, in overtime especially, but in any kind of crucial situation, how many times this year have we seen Veggie lost in the crease with no stick? I mean, it just doesn't happen that often, and I don't recall seeing it any time this year. How many times did you see it?
I don't remember it a ton. I mean, it was an unfortunate sequence for the Mammoth. I mean, there's a minute left in overtime, and give credit to the Golden Knights because they started to turn on the afterburners there in OT, and they found a second gear, and it looked like Ian Cole, one of Utah's really good defensemen who scored a goal in the game. He kind of bumped the stick out of Veggie's hands, and then. Without your goal stick, it's like not having a rudder for a goaltender. Like they can still move around without it, but it's so important to a goaltender's balance and their stance. And Veggie just couldn't get back in net. And you look at how overtime goals are scored in the playoffs, and very rarely is it a perfect tic-tac-toe passing play. Typically, it's a redirect that's going in off of somebody's backside. Or just a crazy bounce. We saw a couple nights ago in Anaheim a controversial goal that barely crossed the goal line. And then it was a scrambled sequence in front of Vemelka that led to Vegas' OT winner. So that's usually how it goes in OT. The Golden Knights had a couple of those sequences in overtime, and they were able to score on one, and that's all it takes. But I tell you what, though, like we've seen some dramatic moments at the Delta Center this year, but knowing that it's all or nothing in overtime, that's a different level of desperation and fandom, and that place was on fire last night.
It was amazing. It was, wonderful game to watch. As long as because you just mentioned redirects, there were a couple Golden Knights goals in this game last night, and it was Howden on both of them. That I'm trying to equate the way he redirected the. This was not like him re-angling the puck with his stick. He's plucking it out of midair when it's going 80 miles an hour with his stick and bouncing it off the dang ice at shoulder level. These are not exactly high percentage redirects and goals, and he got two of them. So you're more of a hockey guy than I'll ever be. So if you had to do that 100 times, how many times could he do it successfully?
You'd be surprised. These guys practice it, and a lot of times it's not a specific drill in practice where it's led by the coaches. A lot of those skill things like stick handling or pulling pucks off the wall or tipping pucks. A lot of times that guy's staying after in practice and working on that. And clearly Brett Howden has worked on that. Cole Smith had a crazy tip the other night. This shot that was going about 10 feet wide, and Smith tips it down off the ice and past Vemelka for one of Vegas's goals. But it's something that these guys have worked on their entire lives. Remember, these guys are skating since they're 5 years old. But like tipping pucks, I never played at a high level, so it's hard for me to fathom how these guys are so good at it. Imagine you have like Shohei Ohtani throwing fastballs at you, and you're not just trying to hit the ball, you're trying to tip it past the catcher, right? Like it's almost. And the catcher's wearing twice as much as equipment as normal. So it's hard for normal people to understand, but these guys have done it their whole lives. And look, it doesn't work every time, right? If it did, the hockey scores would look like football scores. But last night it was 5-4. That's a high-scoring game. It takes a lot for it to go right, but when it does, it looks like a masterpiece.
I've decided that he must be like the most geometrically genius person I've ever seen in my life to be able to get the right angle on those two and put it. Same thing. He was the first one that he scored. It's not going anywhere near Vemelka if he doesn't redirect it. It's like sailing past the goal. But yeah, it's what a specialized skill, and sucks to be on the wrong end of it. But of course, Utah's scored plenty of goals this year that way as well. And that's something that we talked about after Game 1, in the third period especially of Game 1, where Vegas kind of imposed their will and were physical, and it became clear that there was a disparity between how much traffic Vegas was putting in front of Vemelka versus, the other end, where you're getting these beautiful finesse sniper-type goals, and there's not as much of the sort of ugly, rough stuff being played in front of Hart. And we saw, I think, an improvement on that in Game 2, an improvement on that in Game 3. Is that something that you need to see this Utah Mammoth team get back to, just uglying up the waters in front of Hart and when he's in the crease?
Yeah, and I think they did to an extent last night. You look at the first goal; it was a rebound off of Carter Hart that Nick Schmaltz picked up and stashed home to start the rally. And then there were other goals. I'm thinking of the slap shot from Ian Cole that came just 29 seconds later. Alexander Kerfoot doesn't get an assist on the play, but he's standing in front of the goaltender Carter Hart and taking away his eyes. And the defenseman that's standing next to Kerfoot covering him is also taking away his own goaltender's eyes. So it's not always just getting these greasy goals. It's about making things difficult on the goaltender, crowding that crease area, making him or blocking his vision so he can't pick up these shots. Because Carter Hart has been solid this series when he's been able to see the shot, but when the Mammoth can get him moving a little bit and when they can take away his eyes, that's when Utah's found success. And And look, I think that's a big storyline in this series is goaltending. I think Karel Vejmelka's been pretty good. You hate to praise the goaltending too much after a 5-4 game, but I think for the most part, Vejmelka's been good, and a lot of the goals that Vegas has scored have been on those tips or loose pucks in front, and you can't fault the goaltender too much because it usually doesn't have time to react to those types of shots. And then on the other end, Utah scored 4 or more goals in back-to-back games now against Carter Hart. So you feel good about your ability to kind of solve the riddle that was Carter Hart in games 1 and 2. Now the shots are starting to fall a little bit more. But I asked Bear, our head coach, Andre Tierney, about the net front, and I thought it was a pretty good question. I thought it sounded really smart. And he kind of brushed it off saying, well, we can always be better. So I think that's a constant focus for this team and a constant focus in this series, the net front at both ends.
I don't want to be picking on JJ Peterka because I feel like I'm asking a lot of questions about him. He only played 10 minutes last night. He had a penalty. He had a kind of a sloppy, ugly turnover. And this is a guy that we were all excited about the trade. I think he's got a ton of ability, and do we know what's going on with him? Is he slumping right now? Why is JJ Peterka in this playoff run not playing, I think, to the level of his true ability?
Well, he found himself on the outside looking in the second half of the game. That's for sure. He didn't take any shifts, I don't think. I'm not sure if he took a shift in the third period. Definitely wasn't out there in overtime. And I think his line has struggled a little bit this series. The third line with him, Kerfoot, and Michael Carcone. We saw Carcone score a goal last night. That got him going a little bit. We've seen Kerfoot do a lot of the little things on that line, and for whatever reason, it just hasn't clicked in the postseason for JJ yet with those other two guys. And I think the flip side of that is Brandon Tanev got promoted and kind of took JJ's spot on that line, and Tanev is maybe a little bit more rugged and built for the postseason. He hasn't scored a goal all year, but he's been poised with the puck and makes good decisions with the puck, and he's always heading north, where sometimes JJ tries to make a play and it doesn't work out. And so I think a part of it was JJ. The other part was Brandon Tanev playing well, and he's a really fast skater. He's played in the playoffs a bunch before. He's more experienced than Peterka is, and I thought he was effective and deserved that increase in ice time. But the thing with JJ is it doesn't take much to get him going. We might not call his name a whole lot on the radio broadcast some nights, or maybe he only plays 10 minutes tomorrow night in Game 5. But his shot is so elite that when he's out there, you can't take your eyes off 77 because he can turn nothing into something. And some of the best goals this season have been scored by JJ Peterka. And if he can find some offense, if he can find his footing in this playoff series, that's another level of scoring that the Mammoths have been missing.
Mike Folta is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. He is the radio voice of the Utah Mammoth. All right, so a quick turnaround. Hockey players are used to it, but that was an overtime game where you had several guys, both in Golden Knights uniforms and a couple guys for the Mammoth, pushing 30 minutes or skating for over 30 minutes in that game. What is that going to do to Game 5? Are we going to see different lines? Are we going to see different shifts? Or is this just stay the course and push through the pain?
No, I think everybody will be ready to go. I mean, this is playoffs. You have to put your best players out there, and these guys are used to playing every other night too. Like having 2 days in between games is abnormal. They don't like that. They want to play, and so having 1 day in between is just fine. Everybody's resting up here today, and everybody will be ready to go at full throttle come Game 5, and that's what you get in the postseason. It's all gas, no brakes, and you notice it in the third period, in overtime. Andre Tierney's not messing around with who he's throwing out there. He's not necessarily rolling all of his lines. He is trying to give his team the best chance to win on every single shift, and that's playoff hockey, and that's overtime in the playoffs too. It's do or die. There's no consolation prize. There's no standings points in overtime for a loss. You have to get it done, and that's why on the other side, Vegas is rolling out Jack Eichel for basically half the game. He's been out there a ton, and Utah's been countering. One thing for Game 5 to look out for is that the home team in hockey has the last change. If you don't know, it's basically when guys are going out there for a line change at a face-off, the home team is able to send their guys out last, which means they can kind of choose the matchups a little bit more. So that was an advantage for Utah the last couple games, and now that advantage swings back to John Tortorella, the head coach of the Vegas Golden Knights in Game 5.
Have we heard an update or anything about Cooley's wrist? He took a puck right off the inside of his wrist and had to ice it during the game, and obviously he played through. But oftentimes it's the next day that kind of stuff hurts worse. Do we know if he's all right?
I didn't see anything about it, OC, to be honest. There's a couple guys who ate some pucks last night. Alexander Kerfoot blocked a couple shots on one shift. He was in the middle of shooting lanes a whole bunch. I did see that one from Cooley, and unfortunately, wrists are complicated. So, there's a lot of bones and ligaments in there, and you really hope nothing got damaged too much. He played quite a bit the rest of the night, so I didn't see any ill effects from taking that puck to that area. So we'll keep an eye on that. Mammoth are mostly healthy right now. There are some notable absences: Jack McBain and Barrett Hayden, two centermen who are very versatile. They've been out of the lineup all series. But other than that, everybody is as healthy as you can hope for this time of year. I mean, everybody's playing through something, OC. Like I got my allergies right now. I only got a couple hours of sleep last night. We've seen guys play through broken legs, broken ribs, broken jaws in the playoffs. That's normal in the National Hockey League. My allergies almost took me out. That's what I'm battling through. I'm sure you've maybe had the sniffles or something and had to do a show. But that's playoffs. That's this time of year.
I'm dealing with that right now. I've got a probably like grade 1 sniffle happening as we speak, but we're pushing through. And I got the playoff beard happening and everything. We're just going. It's the playoffs, baby. Big picture here, we saw some real chippiness between these two teams, and I'm excited about that. I'm a fight guy. I'm a combat sports guy. I want this to develop into a real rivalry. It seemed like in this last game, both teams kind of shelved that and said, all right, let's play some hockey and let's just let the goal scoring tell the story. Do we expect the chippiness to turn back up in Vegas, or what do you think is going to happen with that sort of aspect in this series?
It's died down a little bit the last couple of games, and I think a big part of that is neither of these teams want to take a bad penalty.
Yeah.
And we saw that in Game 1 where there was an altercation and the Golden Knights were roughing up some of the Mammoths, and the Golden Knights took it a little too far, and they put themselves on the penalty kill. And Utah has one power play goal through 3 games in this series. Vegas has 2. Utah's penalty kills looked really good recently. But in these close games, goaltending and special teams are the 2 things, I think more than anything, that could put you over the edge. And the last thing you want to do in a game that's decided by 1 goal is to put your team on the penalty kill. And for Utah, especially against Vegas, I don't think the Mammoth care as much about getting into the extracurriculars. Vegas, that's a little bit more their style. They want to try and, assert their brutality in the series. But I think the Golden Knights feel good about their game. The Mammoth have actually out-hit Vegas the last couple of games. That's a little bit of a turnabout in this series. But the Golden Knights possess the puck, and as long as they're scoring, they're not going to worry about mixing it up too much after the whistle. We'll see what we get at the Fortress. That's another great home environment, and it can turn on you quickly. So we'll see what we get tomorrow night. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of passion after the whistles, but no crossing of the line in the sand, if you will, to avoid the penalty.
All right, last thing before I let you go. We're, 2 years and 4 days into this experiment with hockey in Utah, and I won't call it an experiment anymore because the state has obviously embraced it, and the fan base is loud and excited. But if you go back to 2 years ago, and I was, I walked up to you on the street and said, hey, man, you're going to be calling a really intense, awesome playoff series in 2 years, what would you have said?
I would have said, I hope I don't screw it up. It's been an incredible ride, and last night was another reminder of that. And I'm so grateful. I came up through the minor leagues and had some great experiences there, but to be able to call National Hockey League games, like it's still surreal for me. And I know everybody in Arizona who came with the team to Utah is grateful for the ownership of Ryan and Ashley Smith. We have a great broadcast crew. Adrian Denny and I have a ton of fun on the radio. Our great producer, Will Trubshaw. And then all of Mammoth Nation. Like, we have people coming up to us and saying hi. It's not because we're the world's greatest broadcasters. It's just because everybody is excited about this team. And it transcends political beliefs, religion. It transcends where you're from. Like, we are all Mammoth and all part of Mammoth Nation, and that's really special. And we got to see that manifest itself last night. We're going to see a whole bunch of Mountain Blue in the crowd tomorrow night, and we're going to be back for Game 6 on Friday. And OC, what I was telling Adrian earlier is you can't have a playoff series clinching win at home if the Mammoth were to win in 5. So we have everything we want still in front of us if Utah can get it done in Game 5 on Wednesday night at the Fortress, and then back home here at the Delta Center on Friday.
That is the right way to look at it. Win in Vegas, clinch at home, be happy, and on to the next one. I love the attitude. Mike, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time. We love ourselves some Adrian Denny on this show, and we're excited that we got to talk to you after long last. So let's do it more often, all right?
Anytime, OC. Always happy to chat. Always happy to talk some puck, especially this time of the year. Let's go get it done in Vegas.
All right, have a great call tomorrow night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Folta, Utah Mammoth radio voice. And, of course, you can hear him alongside our very own Utah Mammoth insider, Adrian Denny, on those radio broadcasts. He does a great job. Adrian does a great job. The TV crew does a really great job. The national crews that they have on this do a great job. You know what I like about the hockey announcers, national hockey announcers? They all adopt a very unique style. I think that you can get into this thing with football, and hopefully it's not this way in combat sports, but there's only a small handful of us, so I would be guilty of contributing to the problem if that were the case. But, like, you could sometimes kind of, like, zone out. You can sort of tune out to the voice of the play-by-play guy, especially because it's a formula and there's a lot of, like, copycatting going on. I don't think that Levy and Wischusen are copying each other at all. I think that it's just, like, maybe hockey is just a better environment for that than in football and basketball.
Yeah, how about Kenny Albert, too? Did you see he broke the record for most national broadcasts across any sports?
Whoa.
Of the 4 major North American sports. I don't know how they tallied that, because I don't imagine NBC, TNT, all the other networks, ESPN, just, like, keeps a tally every time someone does a game. Oh, that's 20 for Bob Wischusen now. Like, I don't know that they do that, but they somehow went back and tallied him. He's at...
So you're saying that this is like a Guinness Book of World Records where it's just like most bananas and sardines eaten in the same meal, where you're just like, no one keeps track of these things.
I'm not sure they actually do, but they do have they did show a top 10 list on I think it was the TNT broadcast that Kenny Albert did over the weekend, one of them, that he was over 1,500 national broadcasts, and Kenny Albert, does football for Fox, does hockey for TNT. He did NBA a long time ago. Hasn't done NBA in a long time. He's done Major League Baseball. I think that's also one that he hasn't done for a long time. I think he's the younger brother of Marv Albert. I'm not mistaken. So he's comes from royalty, and he passed Marv a little while ago to get on top of this list. So that's another guy that you talk about Levy with shoes in. Kenny
Yeah.
Albert's another guy with a unique style that you're never bored listening to him.
Kenny is Marv's son.
Marv's son. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Marv's son. I think I must. There's an Al Albert that I think is the brother of Marv. Anyway.
That's right. Al Albert is Marv's brother, and Kenny is his nephew.
Yeah. So
Anyway,
yeah.
Big thanks to Mike Volta for joining us here on the broadcast. We're going to give away a free round of golf in the Daily Dump next. The Festival of Tees is on, powered by the Utah Golf Association, brought to you by Mountain Home Services. We're giving away free rounds of golf from the best courses in the state and beyond right here, 11 to 2, and on the drive from 2 to 6 every day. So make sure you tune in here and to Spence Checketts. Stonebridge is where we're giving these ones away. Stonebridge around given away next on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. All right, Stonebridge. 27 holes of the best golf in the area. Great for all skill levels. How about this? Gettable holes in ones to challenge even the most skilled golfers. So they want you chasing that ace at Stonebridge. They also have professional instruction available. Call the Pro Shop at 801-957-9000. We're going to give away a free round of golf to Stonebridge right now, 877-353-0700. Tell me who scored the Utah Mammoth's first goal in last night's overtime loss, 5-4. Just a heartbreaker at the end, but who got the scoring going for the Utah Mammoth after they went down 3-0 in the game. 877-353-0700. Text James, tell him I know who scored that first goal. All right, time for the Daily Dump here. We don't need to talk too much about Aaron Rodgers because he is one of those guys now that gets almost tedious to discuss. I just want to point something out. He said publicly many times, I'm not going to let it take until June for me to make a decision and to tell the Steelers my decision. I'm not going to drag this into June like I did last year. It's April 28th, and they still don't know what he's going to do.
I mean, to be fair, it is not June yet. So I guess Aaron Rodgers is keeping his word so far.
I mean,
question mark.
It's well into the offseason, Aaron. It's time for you to let people know what's going on. But the Steelers, because of the uncertainty, they've kind of put an insurance move on Aaron Rodgers. It's a UFA tender that is almost never used, and it means that they have the right of first refusal for Aaron Rodgers. The Steelers now have a right to receive a compensatory draft pick if Rodgers decides he's not coming back to the Steelers and signs with another team. So Pittsburgh believes that there's at least some flirtation going on between Aaron Rodgers and other teams in the National Football League. So they're placing this on him as a protection that if he leaves them hanging, the bride at the altar, they get at least a compensatory pick because of it.
Yeah, some context with the compensatory pick part. Monday was the deadline for there's a post-draft deadline that I just learned about with this news. That if you haven't signed your free agents or they haven't signed with another team, you forfeit the right to a compensatory pick. So this extends that by using this tender. That's part of why the Steelers it benefits them to put this tender on Rodgers.
It also kind of locks in the price that he would have to pay for Aaron Rodgers potentially, which is about $15 million for this season if he decides to come back and play for you. For those who did not watch the Steelers draft, they did add Drew Aller from Penn State. They also have Will Howard and Mason Rudolph in the quarterback room still. So
maybe Drew Aller will finally live up to that immense potential we heard about over and over again ad nauseum as the backup quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Maybe.
Is it every Big 10 team that you have to rag on because they're not Ohio State Buckeyes? Is that how that works for you?
So I can understand why it looks that way when I say something snarky like that, but across all sports, I really have always been bugged by this guy's gonna be an all-pro in football. This guy's gonna be an MVP in the NBA, and then they just always barely tap that potential and never quite get to it. This guy's gonna be an All-American Heisman Trophy winner. That's always bugged me. Carmelo Anthony, I'm looking straight at you.
All right, I got to dig this tweet up again because I almost couldn't believe it when I saw it. And we're going to be talking about some big-time parlays, some big-time sports betting things because Brendan Sorsby is back in the news for the wrong reasons. Darren Ravel tweeted this the other night, and there was somebody who bet like a 7-leg home run parlay. Darren, come on, give it to me. Where is this thing?
You got to wade through all the memorabilia tweets, too.
Why does he do so many memorabilia tweets? Here it is. This was from last Friday. Somebody bet $30 that Riley Green, Kobe Mayo, Jesus Sanchez, Bryce Harper, Nick Kurtz, and Jazz Chisholm Jr. would all hit homers.
Same day, I guess.
Same day.
That's quite the bet to make.
$30. They all hit homers. Longest odds parlay ever paid out in the history of Hard Rock Casino. Florida's only legal sports book is through the Hard Rock,
Okay.
which is affiliated with the Seminole tribe, if I'm not mistaken. But $30 bet. Can you guess what the payout was?
$30 bet, longest odds ever. It's gotta be in the millions. 3 million.
$1.86 million.
Gosh. See, this is one of the reasons why sports betting is so enticing, though. It's because if you do it somewhat, smartly, you only put a little bit down, and so if you lose, you only lose $30. But then you win, and you're a millionaire.
Yeah, the
like,
upside.
that's why it's so enticing.
And look, it's like predicting where lightning is going to strike, but you fool yourself as a sports bettor into thinking that you have some level of knowledge, like, oh, well, I know that Bryce Harper is really good against this pitcher, against this team, so he's probably going to hit one, and Kobe Mayo might do the same thing. And so you so now that $30 bet, that's a dumb bet. You got to hit all 7 legs of that parlay.
Yeah. And by the way, maybe all of those guys are now, by the hardcore baseball fan, known as good home run hitters. I've only heard of 2 of them. That's Bryce Harper and Jazz Chisholm. And Jazz Chisholm is a lot more obscure than Bryce Harper, right? So that's a crazy bet just based on the casual baseball fan who they know in that lineup of 7 hitters.
So it's a dumb bet until it hits, and then you look like a genius, and now you're a millionaire.
Hopefully that guy holds on to that money that once in a lifetime bet he just won, and doesn't try to parlay it into something else he loses.
It's just like double down. Let's do another 7-legger with $1.8 million on the line.
Only one guy I've ever heard of this time,
and we're gonna try to turn this $1.86 million into $1 billion.
Please don't do that.
I love when you hear these crazy outlier stories, but they're crazy outlier stories, right? This is what Brendan Sorsby's chasing, is the problem. He's chasing that high of just the prohibitively rare, impossible odds landing in your favor. But, wow, good for that guy.
Yeah, not to make every betting story into a cautionary tale, but you can't help but think, like, what if it went the other way, and what if he tries to double down, right? You can't help but think that.
Well, then it'd only be $60.
That's, yeah. He does another $30 bet. Yeah, he doesn't do a $1.8 million bet. Okay, fair enough.
You know, the one that always gets me is when people they're talking about roulette, and they're like, oh, it's easy.
Put it on black.
Put it on black. And then if you miss, you double. And you put it on black again. And if you miss again, you double. And then you're going to get your money.
Black is due.
It's just like, okay, I get it. So if you have enough cash that you can just continue to double down, eventually it's going to hit
because
on black. But now you're just back to even? I don't want to risk like $45,000 to get back to having $45,000
just so you can go home to your wife and be like, I didn't lose money, I promise you.
And I love playing poker. Like, I love it. The reason I love it is because I feel like I'm playing against other human beings. I'm trying to take your money, James. I'm not trying to beat the casino or like math. I'm just trying to beat you.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, we got to take a break here. That is the Daily Dump, brought to you by our friends over at Valley Plumbing. The truck with the duck now can handle your plumbing, your heating, and your air conditioning needs. If you've got any issues going on right now, maybe you've got that one vent that doesn't seem to be blowing any air out of it, just give them a call. Or, better yet, go to valleyplumbing.com, set an appointment online. You don't even have to pick up the phone. You can just do it in their chat feature. The truck with the duck, flag them down when you see them, honk at them, wave. They're taking care of basically all of your home improvement and home ownership needs now. Plumbing, heating, and air conditioning. Jeff Schwartz is going to join us at 1. I know he's going to have some thoughts on this Brendan Sorsby situation. We have an update. The Texas Tech presumed starter is entering a treatment facility for a gambling addiction. And, of course, when this headline dropped yesterday, it triggered a bunch more investigation. I'll give you an update. It's not just Texas Tech that could potentially be damaged by this. There's another Big 12 team that wishes this news hadn't come out. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Knicks versus Hawks, Game 5 tonight at Madison Square Garden. You probably don't have tickets for that. The series is tied 2-2, 6 p.m. tip, and it's right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. So immediately after the drive, Knicks, Hawks, Game 5 tonight on your home of the NBA playoffs, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.
You know what else this means? It means you're going to get nauseatingly consistent Knicks talk from both Spence and Porter all show long. So if you're and we're all into that. Absolutely.
No, we're not.
You former Knicks fan are certainly into it, right?
No, I'm a former Knicks fan.
You're reformed.
I know Jalen Brunson plays for them. I haven't watched a lot of Knicks in the last
Patrick Ewing still play for them?
20 years. Oh, man. Okay, so Brendan Sorsby and this gambling investigation that's happening. I asked Gordy Chiesa about this. I'm going to ask Jeff Schwartz about this. He has admittedly gambled for years, thousands and thousands of bets. I think it's important to say that Brendan Sorsby is not being investigated for any kind of point shaving, any kind of game fixing. There was no legal enforcement situation going on where there's suspicion of corruption happening because of his involvement in gambling. But he has admitted that he's addicted to gambling and that he's been gambling on college sports, which, of course, is not allowed for college athletes. Can't bet on college sports. They recently opened a loophole where you can bet on pro sports. You're certainly not supposed to be betting on sports you're involved in. You're not supposed to be betting on teams you play for. He's checked all those boxes. He's done all of it. Well, guess what? Nobody really gets to wag the finger at Brendan Sorsby the way that they thought they should, because Cincinnati, who, of course, he played for last year, was alerted to his gambling problem not last week, not last month. They found out about this before the 2025 football season. And Cincinnati did what you would expect, unfortunately, a team, a program, a franchise to do when their best player has a problem that may or may not rob them of eligibility, may or may not call into question the integrity of their competitiveness, may or may not lead to some eyebrow raising and some hand wringing and all other things associated with these controversial subjects. And Cincinnati was just like, oh, wow, that's crazy. He's got a gambling addiction? We should look into that further. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Sorsby is a victim of some system that didn't protect him from himself. I think that personal accountability is important here. I think that especially when you're talking about someone who is 22 years old and was at least 21 when Cincinnati found out about this, there's, of course, the question of what kind of intervention are we expected to stage here on behalf of a player when they're an adult. But here's the thing. They learned last summer that Brendan Sorsby, who played 2 years at Cincinnati after transferring from Indiana, where he did bet on Indiana games, not ones that he had played in, they found out he was betting on college sports. They found out he had a betting problem. And as far as we know, Cincinnati did exactly nothing meaningful about it. Now, I don't know what you're supposed to do. I'm not here to tell you that Cincinnati, who, by the way, is throwing a fit over his transfer to Texas Tech and is demanding that he pay the $1 million buyout clause, they're just like, hey, yeah, sorry about your gambling problem. Don't let anyone know about that because we want you to play for us. Why didn't you suspend him? Why didn't you get him into treatment? Why didn't you say, hey, this is going to be a big problem for you. This is going to be a big story. If you want us to keep this quiet, you're going to have to give us back some of this NIL money. I mean, there's what do we – again, the adults in the room we're all principled and we all are like, oh, betting is bad and these players shouldn't be involved in betting, until you find out it's your best player that's involved in betting. And then you're just like, you know what, though? We need to make sure it's okay. We're just going to let him play.
Yeah, hold on. He's in control, right? Like,
Yeah.
He's got this.
I don't want anyone on my team that's involved with sexual assault, such allegations. What's that? St. George Police Department? What's that? No, we're going to ignore this. I mean, again, I suffer no illusions that sports entities, including our universities locally, are above reproach when it comes to like their integrity around rule enforcement. And gambling is, for some people, in like less of a gray area and more just like, hey, this is just big business now. Like it is what it is. But this is a prominent quarterback. He was one of the 3 best quarterbacks in the Big 12 conference. Brandon Sorsby was the best player on his team definitively. And somebody at Cincinnati found out that he had a gambling problem that involved gambling on college sports and did nothing about it.
This is, by the way, what Pete Rose got banned for life from.
Correct.
Like,
he is out of the MLB Hall of Fame. He is like
in Cincinnati too, by the way. What's in the water in Cincinnati?
Oh, wow.
No, so he like, and I know that in recent years there's the commissioner just lifted the lifetime ban, so maybe he will end up in the Hall of Fame posthumously. But for a long time we were like, yeah, he did, at least from the league and Hall of Fame level, he did the most terrible thing a guy can do. And he did what Brendan Sorsby did in that I bet on our team to win, and I wasn't playing. He was the manager, so he had an effect on winning or losing the game in a bigger way than Sorsby did at Indiana as a redshirt guy. But like, it's same excuses that Sorsby's and his people are making right now. Is like, well, hold on. I didn't play, and I didn't bet against my team, so why is this bad? It's like, because it's a major rule violation, and it potentially harms the integrity of the game. That's why.
And again, I'm one of these people where I'm just like, okay, so if you bet on your team to win, if I bet on myself to win as a fighter, that's illegal. You're not allowed to do it. But I'm just like, yeah, I could see why it's problematic betting on yourself to lose, because then you can throw a fight.
Yeah.
But if I'm betting on myself to win, I'm already trying to control the outcome of me winning. Like, what does this change here? But when you sign up, they tell you, hey, can't do this. These are the things, like, you're the big man on campus, Brendan Sorsby. There's like 4 things you're not allowed to do when you're the big man on campus, starting quarterback of a Division I football team. Like, cheat on your homework, we'll let you do that. That's fine. We'll let someone, like, we're going to look the other way with that. Okay? You can't bet on sports. That's one. That's one of the actual rules that we're going to try to enforce. Okay? Hopefully, in most cases, they're like, no sexual assault. Okay? We're not going to tolerate that. Hopefully, in most cases, although we see, even locally and all over the country, so many of these. Like, drinking, you're going to get in trouble if you drink. We'll brush all that under the rug unless you also drive. Don't drink and drive, okay? That's a rule we're actually going to enforce on you. Okay, what's rule number 4? I can't even think of rule number 4 right now, Brendan Sorsby, because you can get away with everything. Oh, murder. No murder.
Yeah, you don't kill anyone.
Don't murder, okay? And by the way, if you accidentally do it, we'll probably brush that under the rug too. If there's like some sort of vehicular manslaughter situation, because the system is set up to let these guys do whatever they want, but there's just like a very few things that they have to agree. No one is going to be able to protect you if you bet on college sports, Brendan Sorsby, and he was still doing it. And I would listen to him all day long arguing, dude, I'm doing, it's just fun for me. I like this. This is great. Like, I'm not threatening the integrity of my games. You can see me out there competing. I'm trying my hardest. I'm not deliberately missing anybody. I didn't put any bets in. Like, when I'm at a Cincinnati Reds game and I'm betting on balls and strikes, that has nothing to do with my college football career. I would be like, okay, Brendan, cool. Why didn't you leave it there? Why didn't you just say, I'm only going to bet on pro sports? The fact that you bet on college sports and then that your college found out about it and did nothing about it, you now have this entire network, this web of people that are all in the wrong here. People at Cincinnati are going to be fired for this. Mark my words. There will be somebody in that athletic department who falls on a sword, maybe 2 or 3 people that fall on a sword. Remember when there was the recruiting violation allegations down at the University of Arizona, and Sean Miller's just like, we got to fire this guy and this guy. You're the patsy. Cincinnati, somebody's going to lose their job. Brandon Sorsby, you are going to lose your college football season this year. Texas Tech is going to lose an opportunity to win a conference championship potentially because Will Hammond doesn't come back until like week 4.
Yeah, he's not going to be week 1 starter. As good as he looked and as good a reason for optimism for Texas Tech with Will Hammond, you're going to miss the first month of the season.
All right, we got to take a break. Jeff Schwartz is going to join us on the other side. We'll talk about this. We'll talk about where Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu fit. We know the teams, but how do they fit on those offensive lines in those schemes? Jeff Schwartz, longtime veteran of offensive line play in the league, is going to give us a better context on that. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Welcome in Jeff Schwartz, football expert and betting expert, and the right kind of guy to talk to about this Brendan Sorsby situation. We'll get there, but we also want to ask about how Spencer Fano fits into the Browns' offensive line system. Same thing with Caleb Loma and the New England Patriots. Jeff Schwartz, welcome to the show once again. How are you?
I am a little sad, Sean, because you never sent me a cheer up playlist on Spotify in all our years working together, and I just feel like that would have been appropriate at some point to send me that.
I'm sorry I didn't do that. I'm not a music guy, really.
This I just wish I would be able to talk to you about this Rossini-Vrabel thing for days and days. It would be the most fun we've ever had. There's no outlet for it. There's nowhere to talk about it. The radio is the only, you're not going to spend time on TV to talk about it. It's just not. Radio is the only outlet to talk about this type of story.
Yeah, it's funny because my wife cares zero about any of the stuff that we do on the show.
Yeah, of course. Why would she?
And then I was like, well, did you see, because Vrabel apparently came to Salt Lake for his relationship rehab. Who knows? And
on Saturday,
I was like, hey, have you seen this story? And she was like, what? And I gave her like the Cliff Notes.
Yeah.
And then she went into full investigation mode, and now she's got all the tea on Rossini and Vrabel and stuff.
I tried to tell Meredith about it, and she doesn't care.
Oh.
I figured she'd be like a little into it. I did talk about the playlist. She's like, oh, that's pretty bad.
Just, ugly situation. But not what we're going to talk about mostly on the show today. We'll do that. I don't know. We can call and spill the tea. Spencer Fano got drafted by it's the place I didn't want to see him go. I was like, whatever. If he goes number 6 to Cleveland, he gets $40 million out of it. That's not a bad situation. And then they traded down, and he got $9 million less over the life of the contract and still had to go to Cleveland. So I was like, dang, that sucks. But he and his family obviously thrilled about it. His brother's going to go play with him as an undrafted free agent. And you and I were texting about this, but they said in the phone call, we think you're like a culture guy for us. We think you're a franchise left tackle. And I was like, wait a second. He hasn't played left tackle in a while. What did you make of that?
Yeah, so I'm not a fan of like the immediate drafting someone and moving them to a different position, because why would you do that? Like, and I understand the idea now in the NFL is draft the best 5 and all, I get that. And play the best 5, not draft, but play the best 5. You want to find a spot for them, but you just drafted a very specific player, right? He's been a right tackle. He's been really good. He won the Allen Trophy at right tackle. It's not like you have a great right tackle right now in Cleveland. I know DeJuan Jones is coming back. I get it from injury, but I don't know why you would draft him and move him. I've never understood that, to be honest with you. I remember when I signed with the Giants, and I'm in year 7 now. I played right guard my entire career. Right guard, right tackle. They signed me to play after I played right guard, for a great year in Kansas City. They're all moving you to left guard. I'm not really good at left guard. No, we're playing you left guard. Why would you sign me to move me? I don't understand that purpose. I got signed because I'm good at this one specific thing. They're moving me to somewhere else, and not everyone can do that very well. Now, maybe Fano can make that change. She's very young. I'm sure he'll be fine. I mean, there are examples of it working. Penei Sewell, right, moved from left tackle to right tackle, but remember, he really struggled early in his career, and then Decker got hurt, and he played left tackle for a month, and his confidence shot back up, and he went back to right tackle and was fine. So, I get what the Browns are thinking. I just don't know how executable that is at times. I did text you that I thought the fit, just what the offensive line coach there teaches and what Fano is good at, might mesh a little bit. But I was talking to my brother about this as well, and he thinks he'll be okay. Warhop teaches, the offensive line coach in Cleveland teaches a lot of what's called vertical setting, where you set back off the ball as an offensive lineman, and you typically have to be pretty big, what's the word? Like a thicker offensive lineman. I'm not sure. Spencer Fitz is like a thicker offensive lineman, right?
He's not, certainly not now. He's like 310 pounds.
Right. And so a lot of those guys that have played for Warhop that have been really good have been in that 325, 330 range. But my brother said that Warhop teaches using your hands as you punch. Some vertical guys teach more of a catching technique, I think that would be really tough for Spencer to be like a catching type of tackle. So Mitch thinks he'll be okay, which is important because Mitch played with Warhop in Cleveland actually, and he knows that system very well. So I think that's a made me feel better about Spencer going there. But yeah, I mean, it's the Browns. Like they know quarterback right now, the future, and look, you can make the best of it. My brother was drafted by the Browns. I mean, Joe Thomas was there. It's not like it's been terrible, but the winning just hasn't really happened.
That's where I net out on. It's just like, obviously you're going to get paid well, but are you going to play meaningful football? Because eventually you want that to be part of your career.
Jeez,
there's an intruder in your house.
Well, it might be he just doesn't like. Maybe a kid might be home though. That might be what it is. He's running down the stairs now.
He's just excited about Spencer Fano going to the Browns. Dog pound.
I don't know what he's doing, man. He just is. He gets on with the mailman too. He's like the nicest dog ever though. But he just be barking at everyone. Don't come over, anyone. Leave me alone.
I'm gonna come over. I'm gonna make you feed me steak.
You've met him
again.
before.
Yeah, he's a nice dog.
Yeah. It's awesome.
So the fit for Spencer Fano, we'll see how it plays out. What about for Caleb Lomu? I wanted to see him in a Niners uniform. That we played for the Patriots instead. What do you make of that fit?
I mocked him to the Niners. The Niners, man, it is some rough drafts, buddy. I was doing this on NFL radio yesterday or the day before. Look at the Niners' last 4 years. It's been some pretty brutal drafts. I don't know how they keep winning, to be honest with you. I mean, it's not been great, and trading back and dribbling doesn't feel like a kind of overreach there, right? Maybe because you signed Trent Williams, that you're good with passing on Lomu, but the really interesting part about it is, again, where is he going to play, right? Because Will Campbell's at left tackle, Lomu's played left tackle, right? The Patriots need a tackle because Morgan Moses at right tackle has 1 year left. This is his last year, presumably. I mean, he's got a 1 year contract, and he's like 36, so everyone assumes this will be it for him. So Lomu might have to play right away, which is, I think, always, if you always had to sort of choose, I think you would sit as long as you could, right? Especially a guy like him who can work on technique and just really getting stronger, right? But again, is he playing left tackle? Is he playing right tackle? Is he a swing guy? I mean, drafting a tackle at 31 to be your swing guy, that's not common in year one. That's the way it used to be. You used to be drafted and sit for a year, but everyone plays now. So I was really curious about where he ends up. Do they move Will Campbell inside? Does Will Campbell move to right tackle? Does Moses move to like the swing guy as he gets older? They just tell him, hey man, we're going to play some young guys this season. I'm kind of curious what happens with that situation. But I think all in all, I mean, he went to a place that has obviously been a winning organization. You might not have a coach. I don't know what's going to happen with that situation. But it's not the worst place to be. No.
What did you make of his cool dance moves?
I did not know that about him. Definitely better dancer than me. I'm in the hitch white guy zone.
Yeah,
we're just
keep it
back
right
and
here.
forth, just keeping it right there. We're just kind of pacing back and forth. The older I get, the less I've cared about that. Like Meredith loves to dance, and so I like dancing with her because it's fun, and she's having a blast. So I used to care a lot more. I just do not care anymore. Now I'm at the point where it's time to embarrass your kids at like their bar and bat mitzvahs.
Yes.
Oh, we have Emmy's bat mitzvah day, by the way. Mark your calendar for 4 August from now for her.
You've already got a bat mitzvah day?
Yeah, in 29. August of 29.
What the heck?
So 4 more August.
Is it common to plan them that far ahead?
It's 3 years out, but my kids are on the younger side. So, like, for example, Alex's bar mitzvah is next summer, right? And it's at the end of August. But his class will start having bar and bar mitzvahs this September.
Okay, all right.
So, like, he's at the end of the group. It's going to be a long. I hope I don't get invited.
Is it bar? This shows you my ignorance. Is bar and bat mitzvah? Is that a grade or an age thing?
No, it's the different name for it.
No. Like, do you get it when you reach a certain grade?
Oh yeah, no.
Or is it when you're 13?
That's a good question. I think in Hebrew school you don't hold anyone back, so I think it's all about you're in 6th grade, like
all right.
In Hebrew school you are, and it's about your age. So you're technically you're not allowed to have it. At least our temple says until you're actually 13. Like mine was 2 weeks before I turned 13 because it's supposed to be off like your Jewish birthday on the different calendar, right? So mine was a little early. My kids are after, and because they're summer birthdays and they're July birthdays, July typically the temple's off, right? Like they're not doing summer bar and bar mitzvahs because everyone's traveling, right? Like no one's going to show up. So ours are going to be like right before Labor Day, essentially, for both the kids. They're the same weekend.
Are your kids going to have like My Super Sweet 16 style, where there's just like you have like Flo Rida come and perform?
No, so I can't. I can text you what we're doing for Alex's. I'm supposed to keep it a secret so no one takes our idea.
Okay,
but it actually ends up being, it's actually like pretty cheap compared to like what other people are doing, and I think it's actually going to be a ton of fun.
Okay.
It's going to be a blast.
That's awesome. All right, I love it. Let's talk about this Brendan Sorsby situation. Cincinnati quarterback transfers to Texas Tech, and everyone finds out he's got a gambling problem. And then further investigation shows that Cincinnati knew about this before he played last year and just decided to do nothing about it. He bet on college games. He bet before the legal age of betting. He bet on his own team when he was at Indiana, not in games that he actually played in. What is going to happen with Brendan Sorsby, with Texas Tech, and with Cincinnati and all the layers of this?
Look, I like to gamble a lot. I've actually started. It's funny. Of all things I've talked to my kids about, my 11-year-old about. We started some of the sex ed stuff, right? But like mostly, I'm like talking about. I'm like, dude, you just can't gamble, buddy. Like you just like these are the downsides to it. I tell him all the time. He repeated back to me the other day. He said, "You can only wager the amount you can afford to lose," right? Like I just kind of pound that into his head because it's hard to like. You just can't pretend these things aren't going to happen, right? Like you just can't pretend that your kids will have no access to. In my opinion, I mean, I'm obviously not the best parent, but like you can't pretend that they won't have access to the internet, right? Things that are on the internet. You can't pretend that they won't know what gambling is, right? Like so, I think it's our job to start teaching them about that and these are another stories I think you can use as sort of education for your kids and for people in your life. And Sorsby, it seems like he has an addiction. When you're betting on strike props at a baseball game, pitch by pitch, you have a problem, right? You have an addiction. Like that's a problem. Now, as far as him sort of breaking the rules and betting on games that he was not a part of, but while he was at the same school, I mean, the rules are pretty firm on that. It does seem like he will be suspended and loses eligibility unless they changed the rules. But I don't think you can't bet on, and the reason why is integrity, right? Because there's actually today one of the first people were indicted for, I think, a college basketball betting scandal. Maybe it was NBA. We have to believe as fans that what we're watching is true, right? Is pure. And when it's not, that becomes integrity of the game problem. That's why I think they're so harsh on this, right? And so I'm glad he's getting the help that he needs. He clearly is an addiction. And this is, I hope parents are listening now, like use this example to like start kind of educating your kids about these addictions, right? And it's unfortunate, but he'll hopefully get the help he needs. I don't think he's going to play this year. I don't know how. The rules are pretty firm on this, Sean. Like you cannot bet on the team you are currently on. He did many times. He didn't play in those games, but those have been the rules, man. And I get it. I get why they would come down harsh on him. And I don't know how you change that. I don't know how you go back on that rule.
Well, I don't think you can. I think this is just going to be a question of how good are his lawyers. And even then, I don't know how you can solve it in a timely enough fashion to where he's going to get to play. I mean, we're 4.5 months away from him having to put on cleats and play.
I mean, my guess is they'll try to tie it up in enough legal jargon and court cases that they just put an injunction and have a stay and just say, like, he can play till we figure it out, right? Type of situation, which seems like the best outcome for him. And then after the season's over, they're like, oh, we have a court date magically for March 2nd. It's after the season. You know what I mean, Sean? Like, they'll just keep delaying it until the season's over, I would imagine. They'll try the best to do that. But again, like, it's.
So hold on. I think you're right about that. If that's how it goes, right? What do you do if you're Texas Tech? Do you say, yeah, he's admitted that he gambled on all this stuff, but we just don't care because
they're not going to care. He didn't do it while he was there. Yeah. It's not their problem. That's how I think they're going to approach it. Why would they? I mean, why would they care? He didn't do. He didn't do well. He didn't. I mean, if you're making the case for Tech to play him, right? He didn't bet on any games that we know that he was involved in. Correct? That's not. He didn't do that. So
right.
Right.
As far as we know.
Okay. And he didn't do it while he was here. Well, he might have been gambling on other sports, which I think is allowed, right? I think you can bet on other sports if you're of legal age to do that. If you're a student athlete,
I thought you're not allowed to. I thought you're not allowed to bet on college sports. You're allowed to bet on pro sports.
Okay. Well, maybe that's it. So you make the case that he didn't break the rules while he was at Texas Tech, right? If he's betting on baseball games or whatnot, he's doing it. Now in Texas, there's no legal sports wagering, I don't think. So maybe he's not doing it in Texas, but it's just it's one of those stories that's unfortunate that a young man seems disaddicted to it. I understand the pushback on like, oh, this is what society gets for all the advertisements when we watch sports, and it's funny that no one feels the same way about like a DUI, right? No one's like, well, those alcohol advertisements, they're the reasons why. I mean, it's there's plenty of people have vices, right? And it's their job, and with the help of some of us, to make sure that they handle those appropriately. But it's unfortunate he's in this spot. And again, you have to adhere to, I think, some of the sort of tenets of sports wagering, which I do myself, right? It's not you're not making income off sports wagering, right? Of course I hope to win my wagers, but I also wager again the amount I can afford to lose. That's the number one tenet, man. You cannot overextend yourself. You can't chase and do that. But I mean, if you're betting, Sean, and I gamble a lot, man. I don't bet on individual results of pitches. That is like aggressive amount of sports wagering, man.
It is. Have you ever bet a 7-leg parlay on guys hitting a home run in the same day? Did you see this?
No, I did see that story, but it seems like they actually, according to the house rules, he's not allowed to win all that money.
What?
Like Hard Rock has in their house rules, they have a limit on the amount you can win on a parlay. And it's less than that $2 million.
Well, I thought it was 1.8 that he was winning.
Yeah, but I think like their rules say like you can only win 1.1 in a parlay.
Oh wow!
But I don't know how they're gonna. I mean, that's not, dude. Look, man, those are fun. Every like once a month. Okay, I'm sitting at home like today. I didn't have much work today, and I'll pull up like one of these AI like websites, the sports gambling websites. I got access to one of them, and I'll type in like best home run props for the day. All right. And I'll do a 5-leg home run parlay. You pay $1 pays 4,000, right? Some insane number. I'll put $2 on it, $3 on it, and I'll get I'll get one or two guys hit a home run and hope to get a cash out potentially. But it never works. You're never gonna hit the odds to do that type of parlay. I mean, and that's how they get you, man. That's how the sportsbook gets you, right? Like they offer you these bonuses and these ways to get you to bet on some of these things, but you're not winning much money betting on home run props. That's crazy.
The NCAA seems to be moving closer and closer toward adopting a new eligibility model that would be you got 5 years to play 5 after you graduate from high school or you turn 19, whichever happens first. And there is allowance for all the people listening locally. There is allowance for church missions still.
Yes,
be one of the only things that can pause your eligibility being used up. So you're going back to the way that it was, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But do you think we actually get across the finish line with this?
I mean, it's possible, Sean, but the thing is, like, what stops the courts from ruling in the favor of the student athlete who sues after this, right? Like,
yeah. I mean,
that's my thing. Is I just don't know, like, what is like the end of where this end is. Like it sounds great. I'm good for 5 for 5, right? But what if someone says they're not and they sue and court sides with them? I just don't know if that's the way it's gonna break down. I think 5 for 5 is certainly fair, right? But I don't know again if that's something that will pass if someone sues.
How many years of eligibility did you use?
4. I didn't redshirt.
Okay, so Jeff Schwartz has another year of eligibility under the new system.
I'm gonna come. I just I talked to Jordan Gross yesterday, Utah offensive line coach. He called me back finally. He's my mentor. Like we played with the Panthers. Maybe I'll call him back and see if he needs me. See if he'll sign me up for Utah.
It'd be awesome. Just one more year. Jeff Schwartz.
It was good to talk to him. I hadn't talked to him in a long time. It was nice.
Don't have a lot of NIL money for you, okay?
I didn't ask him about that. I should have maybe been like, hey man, how much money you guys giving 39-year-old former offensive linemen to come be here? Jordan's the best dude. You guys are in great hands with him as your offensive line coach. Like he's awesome. Obviously he can recruit. I think. I mean, he brought over obviously the kid that he coached in high school, but he's really excited for what they're building there at Utah. He said he wouldn't have done it if it wasn't without Scally, of course. So I think there's a lot of faith in that in what they're building there.
Okay, I also wanted to ask you about Steve Saunders, who is the former Baltimore Ravens strength coach that the Utes just hired to take over for a guy named Greg Argist, who was just promoted. He was the lead assistant under Doug Elisaya for like 20 years at the university. Coach Elisaya goes to Michigan. Argist is the head strength coach for whatever it is, 4 months. And then, something this week happened. He tendered a resignation. It seems like maybe this was a more of a firing than a resignation, or more of a like, hey, we're going to ask you to take a backseat to this guy who was the former Ravens strength coach. And maybe that was what motivated him to say, no, I'd rather just move on with my life, whatever. But it doesn't seem like it was just him saying, I'm done. So in steps this guy who was effectively blackballed by the NFL. He got the F- NFLPA grade. We're hearing from, Eric Weddle says, no, this is the best strength coach that I ever had in my career. He allowed me to extend my career. He made me a better player. He made me stronger. He adjusted things for my particular body type in a way that no one ever had before. And, then you get like the Derek Wolfs of the world saying, like, I was injured for 2 straight years because of this guy. So any thoughts on that, having been in college strength programs and, of course, an NFL strength program? Multiple.
I mean, I think there are going to be players that don't like aspects of everything, right? But I just looked it up because I wanted to see that he got an F-. I was looking if it was for like the weight room or for the strength staff. For the strength staff was an F-, which is pretty rough, right? To have that on your career there. Look, I think that it's probably going to be fine. I don't know, man. I mean, going from the NFL to college is quite different, right? With the personalities, with the body types, with what we're trying to get from those guys. It's odd that a guy would up and resign this week, Sean, or maybe a couple weeks ago. After Spring Bowl, obviously, might have been a big disagreement with how the program should be structured. And look, you want your strength coach, your head coach to be aligned. I mean, that you have to have that to make it work.
You do, and it's Argus was there. I mean, he was there when I was there. He was a GA when I was there. He's a guy who's been there, and so he's this familiar face, and he's like the comfort blanket that people have with like, no, this is the Utah football that we know, but Morgan Scalley is making these moves and making this his program, and whether you like it or not, you kind of what I said in the first segment of the show is you got to let a coach run the program how they want to run the program if you're going to judge their performance.
Agreed. I think you have to, right? And there's different circumstances for reasons why you would get an F. That really doesn't apply. I think at Utah it's a different job, right? And so I think it's unfair to look at that grade and feel different about it. So you see the results on the field, and strength coach job, keep guys healthy, right? Get them stronger, build really strong physical bodies mentally, right? You got to push through. I remember my strength coach at Oregon, man. We would run, right? I mean, everyone runs. We condition. I always remember thinking to myself, like, I can't run one more. I'm gonna like just. Like my breathing is so heavy, I'm gonna just stop breathing. We'd always run one more, and then that was it. Like every time, like he knew exactly where to push you. Like that's the job of the strength coach, right? And so, if he can do that and guys buy in, then it's a good hire.
The wild thing about the evaluation of a strength coach for me is like we'll be halfway through a season and decide whether or not we like a wide receiver coach or we like the way that the corners are playing or whatever. And I feel like it takes a lot longer for a strength coach.
I mean, to me, it's about developing bodies, right? And so you might not see that for a couple years, and also injury prevention, right? Injury prevention is a big part of it. That's a big part of that job that we don't talk about a lot. And guys staying healthy and whatnot, and maturing their bodies. I mean, I watch Oregon spring game, and there's a couple defensive linemen. You're like, wow, that they look much thicker, right? Much stronger. That's the strength coach. But again, those are guys in year 3, right, Sean? Like it takes 3 years to start doing that. Before I leave, have you been to a Mammoth game yet? They look like a lot of fun.
They're the
playoff
best.
Game.
They're amazing.
Game.
Yes, I went on the first home playoff game was Friday.
Yeah,
and we went as fans on Friday. The wife and I and my in-laws. It was great.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah, they look like they're a lot of fun. Obviously, last night was a weird ending, but
wait, did you stay up and watch that?
No, I saw it this morning.
Okay.
The night scored, but it was offsides, right? And then the goalie lost his stick at the end, right? And they scored to win.
Yeah.
Dude, hockey is it's so unpredictable in the playoffs. Like it, the NBA, the Magic are up, 2-1 or whatever it is on the Pistons, 3-1 now. Like the Pistons kind of fraudulent. We sort of knew that. But look at the Oilers right now. You're like, what is happening? Like it's
and Connor McDavid's questionable. He's hurt.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's such a different sport where these underdogs, man, they play tough every night. It's fun to watch. Playoff hockey is fun to watch.
It's the best.
The fighting, any fights?
So the series was crazy chippy through like the first 2.5 games. And then I think both teams realized like we can't afford these. This is tight enough. We can't really afford penalties.
Yeah.
So now it's they've tuned it down a little bit. But you got Game 5 tomorrow night. You got Game 6 Friday night here in Salt Lake City, and there's plenty of time left.
Night? You go again Friday night?
I want to, but I'm going to be on PFL duty on Friday. So
that's sad.
You know what? We have a ticket if you want to bring your wife out.
Friday?
Yeah.
I have to be with Meredith in public. I'll probably pass on that. Don't tell her I said this.
Okay, this is my last question for you before we let you go. You're a high school pitcher because you were.
Yeah.
All right?
I was, yeah.
You've got a playoff game on the same night as prom.
Oh, I'm going to play baseball.
Yeah.
But I
didn't
even want to go.
Did you see this story?
I didn't even want to go to my prom. Why would I want to? You think I was my anti-socialness started like 5 years ago?
Did you see this story?
No.
From Florida?
No, is he gonna pitch like in his suit? Is it like LOL?
No.
He's pitching his tux?
This happened. This is why I'm asking this. Why the poll question is up at Real OC Sports. To all of you out there listening, West Nassau High School versus Sewanee High School in Florida.
Okay.
3A Florida high school baseball. Brendan Sorsby's probably betting on it. I'm not, but West Nassau had 5 seniors, including their best pitcher, choose to go to prom instead of play in the baseball game, and they lost their baseball game because 5 seniors showed up at the prom instead.
You know whose fault that is?
The people scheduling.
That's their girlfriend's fault. It's starting at 18 years old, so it's already starting. Out of 5, how do you rate the bar mitzvah party I just sent you?
7.
It's great, right? Can you imagine, like, adults can do it too, not just kids. Like, they have adult.
Yeah, I'm not even invited. I'm coming to do that.
Yeah, you are.
Well, I haven't got an invite yet, but
it's not till August of 27.
Well, I don't know how far ahead you said. The bar mitzvah. I've never been to a bar mitzvah. Did you know that?
Well,
if I attend your son's bar mitzvah, it'll be my first one ever.
I mean, here's a question for you: You gonna miss a PFL for a bar mitzvah? I go to PFL, but
it's a great question.
I totally understand it. No save the dates have been sent out yet.
Wow, that's it's a whole thing. It's a lot going on.
Yeah, a lot happening, buddy.
All right, you're the best.
Thanks
for
talk to you next week.
All right,
bye, buddy.
Jeff Schwartz. A lot of thoughts there. The gambling stuff for Brendan Sorsby. And look, the fit for Spencer Fano with the Browns, I was really excited to talk to Jeff about that because when Spencer got drafted to the Browns, he was like, I actually don't like that offensive line coach for him. It's like, oh, what do you mean? If he's a good offensive line coach, Spencer's a good player, it fits. But you heard him breaking it down. There's different, especially pass setting techniques that may or may not fit your body type, your skill set, etc. So we're going to have to see how it plays out for Fano the Younger. All right, plenty left to get to here on the Sean O'Connell Show. We have some what do we have to give away still? We have Red West Festival tickets to give away. That'll be in our topical trivia coming up in about 10, 12 minutes. And, of course, we'll do our best for a little crosstalk. But before we get there, more thoughts on the NHL playoffs and how the Utah Mammoth get over on Vegas tomorrow night in Vegas. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. All right, spring is in the air. It actually looks like it today. And coming up at Shields, Doc Dogs on May 29th. Excuse me. Wow. The pipes are not sounding great today. If you have not been to one of these Doc Dogs events, May 29th, Shields in Sandy is where it's at for you. Elite canines launching off the dock, flying through the air, hitting the water, full competition mode, distance, speed, height. The dogs bring it all, and they're all good boys and girls. So it's just wholesome family fun. Giveaways, vendors, great food, full day of high-energy fun for the kids. The kids love this stuff. Make sure you get down there to the Shields in Sandy in the parking lot. The Dock Dogs are ready to fly. Do not miss out. I will be there with my crew. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Arguably the biggest sporting event in the Salt Lake City area in this spring. Arguably,
I think that's probably playoff hockey, but it's I appreciate you giving the Dock Dogs credit.
Whoa, bigger than Messi and Sandy, biggest one in. And wow, you hate soccer.
You know, it had already completely slipped my mind.
How dare you? By the way, it's a World Cup year.
That was such a one-off, though. You know what I mean? But maybe that's what makes it bigger. It's the only opportunity for most of us to see Messi live, unless, of course, you're like me and you have VIP front-row tickets to every World Cup game.
I just got a bunch of texts. The Gov, Spencer Warren, Jay Nolly, Dunny, they all said, you are OC, it's dead to us. We will never be on his show.
You know what I love about all those guys? Is that they enjoy soccer and are passionate about soccer without expecting you to be.
Did you hear one of Dunny's last hits with Spence? He said he mentioned that his wife hates soccer.
That surprises me, actually.
Yeah, but then it doesn't really surprise me because we're both married to women who aren't interested in watching sports at all. So it doesn't surprise me from that.
You know what though?
That
my wife has really gotten into the hockey.
Yeah,
she's really buying in on the Mammoth now. So maybe this is the solution for all of us.
Gateway sports fandom.
I said we were going to talk more Mammoth hockey. Actually, I got a text, so I want to address something here on the air. The Greg Argus stepping down at the University of Utah as the head strength coach. There are people out there, and I don't know where we're supposed to fall on the spectrum. There are people out there who have an expectation that because things went well under Kyle Whittingham, we want Morgan Scalley's program to be a lot like that, just an improvement on what we saw there. And like every coach who's getting a first head coaching opportunity, Morgan's going to have to figure some of these things out. And what I'm hearing about the separation from Greg Argus is I don't like what I'm hearing in the way that it happened and the fact that maybe he turned down a job at Michigan to stay at Utah because he thought he was going to be the guy forever, and this is kind of his dream job. He's been climbing that ladder for 20-plus years, and I love Greg Argus. He was really great to me when I was a player up there, and he's been great to me every time I've seen him ever since, and that's multiple years, and I wish him and his family nothing but the best. If I pull back on that, like, wait, this guy's my friend thing, and I look at Morgan Scalley, who I also, consider myself to have a pretty good relationship with, and I say, you're the head coach of your alma mater. You're the head coach of the University of Utah. What voices are you going to listen to as far as your recommendations? How are you going to make this team better? What changes need to be made so that it is not a continuation of Kyle Whittingham's program, which was great, which was wonderful. But it's not like he won a national championship at the University of Utah. It's not like there's not room for improvement. It's not like you're coming off back-to-back Pac-12 championship years like you were a few seasons ago. It's not like you're coming off back-to-back Big 12 championship years, which was the expectation both of these past years, and you fell short of those expectations. It's not like you're just demolishing your rivals still. I mean, there's tweaks that need to happen in this program so you get back to where you need to be in state, in the conference, and I hate that this has to be one of them. But we talked about it earlier on the show, and I think it bears repeating. Morgan Scalley should be allowed, should be supported in bringing in everyone he thinks belongs in those positions. Now, I don't like, hey, this is your job, and 4 months later it's not your job. There are better ways to do that. I think Morgan, if you got the truth serum in him, he probably would say, look, I wish that we had figured this out sooner, whatever. The other controversial thing, or could be controversial thing about this hiring is that you're talking about a guy that the NFL effectively blackballed and rejected, and there's plenty of problems in the NFL. Maybe you still trust, though, that the Ravens and every other NFL team had a pretty good reason to move on from Steve Saunders. You got to give it context, though, right? Go read the Reddit reports. Go look at the tweets from players. He was accused of covering up COVID outbreaks, things like that. Well, I think most of us have come down on the side of like maybe we didn't handle the COVID situation all that perfectly as a nation, as a workplace, depending on where your workplace is, whatever. So holding someone to the standard of, hey, did you handle COVID perfectly, maybe is not super realistic. And if you trust Morgan Scalley, which I think as a Utah football fan, you kind of have to, then you say, all right, he wants this guy, I'm going to let it ride with this guy. And by the way, Eric Weddle, who is, I believe, the most trusted voice of all former Utes, said this guy is the answer to some of Utah's problems, that he is going to make sure that guys gear their training programs towards their body types. He believes that because that's what his experience was with this guy as his coach in Baltimore.
I'd be curious because Steve Smith was in Baltimore when Steve Saunders was the strength coach, and he and Weddle overlapped a little bit there, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if Steve Smith said anything about it. I wonder if he's in, if he's in the middle or if he's in the camp of there's a reason we fired this guy, or if he's in the camp of Weddle where it's like, no, this guy's legit. I'd be curious about Steve Smith, another influential former Ute.
And the thing is, as much as we love Weddle and as much as we love Steve Smith, their opinion of it is only just that. It's not like they don't get to make these decisions.
Right.
And Morgan Scalley has the guys that he trusts. And I promise you, when Eric Weddle says, I give this guy my full endorsement, he's a great person, he's a great coach, he helped me, that carries weight with Morgan Scalley. But guess what? If Steve Smith called and said something to the opposite effect, that would hold weight as well.
Yeah. And just there's a little bit more context. We've referenced what Weddle said publicly. He actually tweeted about this. Alex Markham reported he went on the website and found that it's been updated. Steve Saunders is on there listed as director of football sports performance, and in that post, Weddle said he's the best strength coach I've ever had in my entire career. The Utes are lucky to have him. When players get back, ask them what they think of Steve. That's all you need to know. He had a question about, I'm curious about the bad pub around Saunders, and Weddle's response to that was he was the scapegoat for COVID nonsense that happened in Baltimore, got blamed for things that weren't even his fault. You will see. I wouldn't have suggested Morgan to interview him if I didn't believe he was the best and would help our program that needed it. And the last thing he said is if he ever became a college or pro head coach, Steve Saunders would be his first hire, which that's typical. You get the strength coach first, but that's how much he believes in Steve Saunders specifically.
And look, Weddle's been around some of the best coaches in the game. He played for some of the best coaches in the game. He played for Urban Meyer. He played for Kyle Whittingham. He was coached by Matt Bayless, who was Urban Meyer's strength coach and did an incredible job. He played for he was coached by Doug Elisaya. He knows. And then he went on to incredible success in the NFL. Now, I have a hard time because I love Eric Weddle. Like he's a good friend of mine. I was texting him about this last night. It's easy to just kind of defer to his expertise, say, oh, well, yeah, if he says it's good, then it's good. I don't need to form my own opinion on it. I can't do that because I'm a radio guy, and I'm just kind of an opinionated you-know-what anyway. But that goes a long way. Him saying that about anyone, like, I trust this guy, goes a long way. And it goes a long way in more ways than one, especially when we put it in the context of, in the next 2 years, the biggest recruiting decision ever for the University of Utah football program is going to happen in the Weddle household. If Steve Saunders gets you half an inch closer to landing Gage Weddle, like it's probably some reason to hire him.
A little politicking going on, you think?
I don't think so. I don't think that's what Morgan's doing. I think
not the motivation, yeah.
But I think that Morgan is looking at it and he's saying, okay, I need to separate myself from the things that weren't working for us in the past. I need to start moving towards things that will work for us better in the future. I've got an incredible resource in my good friend who's an NFL veteran, who's maybe a Hall of Famer in the NFL, and he's telling me that this is the best guy that he's ever been around in the weight room. And if you trust that, it means also I trust this more than I trust the reports of all the bad stuff. From the Rashad Bateman saying, like, oh, this guy's not good. Okay, like, you got to take it all in. And I encourage all of you out there to do it, and maybe you'll come out some way. But Morgan Scalley has a new strength coach. And the work being done between now and mid-August is the most important work that this Utah football team can do. I told you when we went out to spring ball, one of the things that struck me about this team was a lot of them do not pass the eyeball test like we are accustomed to Utah football players passing the eyeball test. Sure, there are some, but this team needs to get bigger, stronger, better. And this Saunders guy now is in charge of making that happen. Young players are going to be expected to step up. These guys, Jai Moe and all these guys that were from a lower level, your body has to be ready for the higher level now. Your technique and your efforts and all that stuff, you can control that. The strength coach is going to help your body get ready and hopefully help your body to stay healthy. Anyway.
And to your point about earlier, how just not obvious from our perspective, we're not in the program, the impact of a strength coach is. We probably won't be talking about Steve Saunders again. We'll talk about him in the fall camp probably. But after that, we probably won't talk about him again for like 4 years.
I hope we don't talk about him at all next year because you know what that means? Players aren't getting hurt.
Yeah.
And by the way, he's been quoted in interviews saying, like, I hate that strength and conditioning coaches get blamed for injuries. He doesn't like that. I don't like him saying that, if I'm being honest. Understand the nature of your job is if players start to get hurt, soft tissue injuries, tendonitis, stuff like that, I am going to be looking at you. We all are. But he understands it now. Anyway. We'll take a break. We'll give away Red West tickets, 2-day pass, two 2-day passes, actually. Coming up for October, the Red West Music Festival. Sean O'Connell Show wrapping up in 3 minutes. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. I have a pair of tickets for you. 877-353-0700. Red West is back October 16th and 17th at the Utah State Fair Park. Ella Langley, Shabuzi, Sam Tucker, and many more. 2 two-day passes. If you can tell me who scored goal number 4 for the Utah Mammoth in last night's tragically overtime loss. Tragic overtime loss to the hated Golden Knights of Las Vegas. 877-353-0700 for 2 passes to the Red West Festival. The Drive with Spence Checketts is up next. Crosstalk is brought to you by our friends over at Advanced Window Products. 801-850-9100, $2,500 off, 10 windows or more, warranted for the life of your home. As long as that home is standing, those windows are warranted. They are serving warranties on homes that got Advanced Window Products well before Nate Orchard and Jake Weber even took over the company. They stand by the work of the company even before it was their company. They're just that kind of a company. So give them a call, 801-850-9100, advancedwindows.com, and tell them OC sent you. Like I said, the Drive is next, and would you believe it? Spence Checketts is here. He's right here in our studios.
How are you feeling?
I feel like I am the father of 3 little booger machines right now.
Okay, that explains it. Driving around town, of course I'm listening to the Sean O'Connell show.
Naturally.
What else would I be doing? I'm like, my man's running on empty today.
No, it's just, just a little sinus, whatever.
Okay. Can I ask you a question?
Nasal drippage.
Am I going to be good talking to that microphone?
I'm going to Lysol it. Legitimately, I'm going to Lysol it before I make you come over here.
Well, look, all I know is that I'm really glad that someone who used to fill in for you doesn't, because dry heaving for 4 hours in the afternoon was not my favorite thing. May I ask you a question as our resident, how shall I say, cheapskate?
Oh, yes.
Don't get that excited.
I enjoy thrift-based questions.
So I feel I'm a generous tipper. I have no problem tipping.
Yeah.
I think I had a 6-month stint as a waiter in college.
Yeah.
I was so bad at it. I hated it. And, everyone should work in the service industry at least once.
Formative, yeah.
Yeah, indeed. So 25% if I'm out to dinner, I'm fine tipping.
Yeah.
What's the deal with now everywhere you go, every transaction has, like, I just went into a market on Main Street to grab a couple snacks before the show.
Yeah.
I check out, and it's like giving me options to tip. I'm just buying some M&Ms and a bottle of water.
Yeah, there's no tip involved there.
When did this become a thing where now everything you have the option to tip, even though it's just you didn't do anything. I'm just buying M&Ms.
So somewhere along the way, all businesses, and it started with major corporations and it's filtered down now to like small businesses.
Yeah.
They have figured out that like if you just ask, people might say yes. Or you can go the opposite route and not ask and just charge a service charge.
Yeah.
And most people are not confrontational enough to just be like, wait a second, why is there a 10% service charge on you handing me some M&Ms?
Right.
I don't want to pay that.
And it worked because I said no tip and felt guilty.
Yeah, I don't feel guilty about that. And I am a cheapskate in most ways, but I'm a very generous tipper because I worked in the bar and service industry for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And my philosophy on it now is like, you add an extra $2 to $5 to somebody's tip that completes that percentage, that gets it all the way up to 25% or whatever.
Yeah.
You're never, ever going to miss that $2 to $5. You're
100%.
not.
Yeah.
But for them, it's impactful. It makes their day. Whereas like, oh, that 10% tip sucks. That 15 to 20% tip means I've done a good job today.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like the stuff where they just flip that iPad around and they're just like,
exactly what happened.
Sir, I talked to you for 9 seconds.
Yeah.
Would you like to tip me? I just say no tip.
Yeah.
No problem.
Okay. I'm glad that I'm not alone there. How much, what was because the other thing that I realized when I worked, Mole Boons, shout out, rest in peace, in college, is there were like parents working a lot to like support their children as servers. And, you get the good shift and you're a pro, you can make a little bit of cash. But I was stunned. My first night, worked a 4-hour shift. It was my first shift, so I had to move a bunch of tables, a bunch of chairs, in addition to waiting tables. And at the end of the night, I walked away with like $18. I stopped at Wendy's on the way home to get like a spicy chicken sandwich meal so I could eat something.
Yeah.
And I realized my take home that night was like $11.
Yeah. It's cool.
Well, it's not cool at all.
It's wonderful.
It's slavery. What was now, as the bouncer, you were creatively probably accepting like, oh, you can get to the front of the line for $100 here or there.
Yeah. I mean, look, I would bartend and make, a couple $100 a night sometimes. The most I ever made bartending, I made like $1,000 in a night.
Oh.
And I was like, this is incredible because I was in my early 20s.
Yeah.
And life was cheaper back then.
Yeah.
I was like, this is wild. Working front doors up at the Sundance Film Festival was like outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
So the policy was the two door guys, you would just take your $100 handshakes, right? And then you would hand it over you'd hand over the wad of cash to the guys that, like the boss, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a couple nights where I was like, it wasn't fitting in my pocket well anymore, these wads of cash. And the right thing to do is, because I get to be on the front door, but all the guys inside are dealing with the drunks and the idiots that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So they got to get theirs as well. But the guy who was running the security company, former Utah football player in his own right, shout out Rob.
Shout out Rob. What's up, Rob?
And he knew the kind of the score. He'd be like, all right, well, door guys, because you got to really craft who our crowd is tonight. You get half of the take, and everyone else is going to split the other half of the take. One night I took home $4,000.
Oh, my gosh.
Working the front door at Sundance. And I was like, I mean, that is before I had fought at a high level. That is before, I had never made that kind of money for 6 hours of work. And I thought I was the king of the world.
Yeah. It's funny when you're younger how little you understand about how money works. And when you're like 8 years old, if you get $20, you're like, well, am I even going to school anymore?
Yeah, like I'm good.
$20. Well, I'm not going to school today.
How many Pop-Tarts I could buy with this?
Did you ever have any celebs crack you off something crazy at Sundance?
Matthew McConaughey showed up.
All right.
Matthew McConaughey showed up in a disguise, like a comically bad Spirit Halloween wig and some big reflective aviator glasses. And like, if you're walking in the dark in the snow in Park City, you probably don't realize it's Matthew McConaughey.
Right.
If he's walking up to you to get into the club, it's pretty easy to recognize that he's Matthew McConaughey. But of course, the kosher thing is to not be like, "Oh, Matthew McConaughey,
right, yeah.
Can we get a picture?"
Yeah.
And just like, "Hey, man, big fan of True Detective. Thanks for whatever." And I wouldn't have been True Detective at that time. He hadn't even done True Detective. Whatever I said to him, and he just got, "Oh, thanks, man." And not on the way in, on the way out, probably after he'd been greased up a little bit, he was handing out Benjis.
Nice.
So that was nice.
Nice. The most disappointing celebrity interaction you've ever had?
Chuck Liddell.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Mine's Sean Penn. On Oahu, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Lele's over there, that grill oh, my gosh. It's right on the golf course, Turtle Bay. I hope it's still there because Turtle Bay has been, now it's like a Ritz or something, which sucks. But Lele's, their restaurant on the golf course, is phenomenal. Great ribs. Get the ribs. I know you want to get seafood if you're on Oahu. But I'm sitting at the bar, and Sean Penn walks in.
Okay.
With a girl that, dude, like, I don't know how old she was. She wasn't close to his age. And he's sitting there, and he comes walking over and stands next to me to order them drinks. And I was like, hey, man, look, celebrities are people. I grew up around these people, so I'm not like starstruck. I really never am. They are just people just like you and I that might have an extraordinary skill set or whatever it is. So I wasn't going to like bother him, but he's standing right next to me. I'm like, hey, man, big fan. He just looks at me and laughs and turns away. I'm like, you
not even
jerk.
like a thank you?
No,
not
nothing.
Even like, oh, hey, nice to meet you?
No, and I wasn't like, hey, Into the Wild is an amazing movie, dude. I was just like, hey, man, big fan. And just like scoffed at me and turned around and walked. I'm like, calm down, Sean Penn.
That's not surprising to me. He seems like a very pretentious type celebrity.
But I'm a little surprised at Chuck Liddell. I mean, I have no frame of reference for him, but
And maybe it was just a bad day for Chuck Liddell, but man, that was a rough one for me.
when he was like at his height, that's when I was most in MMA.
Yeah.
So what happened? He just blew you off or what?
Yeah. He just blew me off. Yeah.
That's too bad.
And I was just like, I got to interview him when I was like long time ago.
Yeah.
And it was a bad interview, but I'm like, whatever. Interviews suck.
Mhm.
When I actually got to meet him, I had already fought in the UFC. I was fighting in the PFL. Doesn't mean he knows who I am, but he knows, like, he fought my coach.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, and he
You're
was
in
just,
you're in the ecosystem.
and he was just like,
Was he blasted or was he sober?
you could never tell with Chuck.
Yeah. Well, he certainly had a minute where I felt like he was kind of like the biggest star the UFC had.
He was.
Yeah.
The UFC probably never would have got to where it got without him and Randy and Tito and those guys in those days. So
Never a big Tito guy. I don't think that's a hot take.
I don't think it's a hot take. Tito, you know what's funny about Tito? Just go find him, the memes of how dumb Tito Ortiz is.
Really?
Like the quotes of him trying to answer questions.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely hilarious. He's it's kind of like the Arvell Reese stuff that you're seeing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where people are like his brain might actually be a football.
Yep.
He like it's a point of pride for him. They had a 0.4 GPA in high school at one point.
Yeah.
And overcame that. You're just like, dude.
Good thing you can play football,
You
buddy.
get a 0.4 by writing your name on the paper, bud.
No, I'm sure you came across this. There are just some dudes where you're just like, I'm so glad you're an athlete because otherwise you would be living outside when you finish school, just so you know.
Yeah, there's some of those.
Yeah. God bless him.
All right, stay tuned for The Drive with Spence Checketts. Thanks for listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. We'll do it again tomorrow. ESPN 700 and